Oh, hello there. Didn't see you coming.
Hello.
Time for another episode of Bitcoin Talk Show. We're joined by Derek J.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hanging out with the World Crypto Network, talking about what's going on in the world of Bitcoin.
With the mysterious Bitcoin Blake via radio.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there.
No one can see you. You're on radio.
Oh, hi.
So I think
his hands, but you can't see it. So, again, gestures aren't going to work. You're on radio.
I'm winking at you right now.
there's a lot of important things that are happening in the world of Bitcoin this week. I was shocked to learn that Bitcoin Not Bombs had a heist of some Bitcoins because of some poor security measures that our very own Davi Barker has owned up to, and then
that was Davi personally, not Bitcoin Not Bombs. Drew wants us to be very separate on those. So
that's a point well made.
For Drew, we will say that the charity is okay, that Davi personally had a personal hack. So.
Yeah, no, definitely, but Davi is integral to the goings-on there, so we also want to make sure that we can have him be as comfortable as possible, because he's a big part of their ability to succeed, so definitely.
And if you haven't heard of Davi, it's convenient to refer to him as the group that he works for. So.
Right, or just, so Davi wears many hats, and he was holding money for many of these organizations, and one of them was Bitcoin Not Bombs. It lost some of his money, but then he replenished it because he was at fault. But I thought that was just awesome. First of all, Davi's not here to defend himself, so I won't be saying anything bad. I had him on my show recently to talk about it, and I just think, what a stand-up guy to reach into your own pocket, be like, whoops, I made a very big, public, embarrassing mistake. Now I'm going to correct it as quickly as possible. Using my own money. Not everyone would do that. We've seen in the Bitcoin community some people have made some colossal mistakes and they are not willing to pay their customers back. So good on Davi. I think it bodes well for the Bitcoin community because there's no regulators, right? You would think that we would need regulators to make sure that this doesn't happen, to make sure that charities aren't taken advantage of. Well, we didn't need them, and people can act independently on their own.
Yeah. Davi's a really good guy, and what happened is a lot of people think that having a password on your Bitcoins is like having a password on anything else. But what I kind of want to illustrate to people is that just simply having a password on your Bitcoins, especially if it's a password that you have not weighted against what really makes a good password, it's almost like not having a password at all, because if you go out and use various different public Wi-Fi or expose yourself to Trojans and keyloggers and things like that, your password can be captured so easily that it's like not having a password at all. But we do have technologies to help protect people against this. Technologies like two-factor authentication, multi-signature, and what we need to do is have everybody be aware of these things so that they can take control over their money and not suffer from inflation and the lender of last resort bending everybody over, but also not suffer from individual theft like happened to Davi, who's a really smart guy.
So that term gets thrown around a lot, Blake. You're a security guy, so tell us what two-factor authentication means to you. To me, it's like when I sign in with a password and then a text message. But you, before the show, were like, oh, no, text messages, no good, not secure. Need to use something else, like an app, like Google Authenticator. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, definitely. Well, I'm not sure where the current version of this technology came from. I think maybe RSA came up with it, but don't quote me on that. So RSA has little dongles and keychains that you might have seen the different people, they've been carrying them around for a while. And what they have is this keychain or this dongle with a series of numbers on it that changes every 30 seconds. So without knowing what that number is, the password to your various accounts are no good. So what you can do is you can actually get a very simple application for your smartphone which allows you to see this number that changes all the time, and then it ties to your various other accounts. So once you have this number that you need to know tied to your accounts, you have effectively two passwords. One password that you like and that you can remember, and another password that is either on your fob or your phone that other people can't know actively, and even if they figure it out, it's only good for a very little while. The reason that this is better than SMS or like a simple messaging system or things like that, is that when you have SMS and translation and over the 4G and all kinds of that, there's a lot of systemic risk that's applied to that data as it's going back and forth, and it's really hard to manage and mitigate all of that risk. This is one of the primary reasons that companies like RSA have a dongle with a number that changes that works even if you're in a tunnel or in a bunker. And that's the same thing with Google Authenticator. If you have that software on your phone, it can be in airplane mode with no data connection, and you can still know what your key needs to be to log into various other things. So it sounds a lot more complicated than it is when I talk about it like this, but it's really maybe takes about 15 minutes to learn.
Well, I want to break it down for people and let them see what it looks like. So I just downloaded right here on my phone, at your recommendation, Google Authenticator. Now it says I can add an account, and this is something that I could use as the second factor in the authentication process, right?
Correct.
So
yep, that would be the second factor after your password.
Right,
Well,
okay.
The first part is your password, and that proves that you have your password. The second part is your cell phone, and that proves that you have your cell phone. So it's these two factors working together.
And this is what I'm at right now. It says manually add an account by scanning a barcode or entering a private key, or through available Google accounts, which I guess my phone knows that I've got Derek J. Freeman at Gmail and Peace News Now. So what do I do now?
Well, the first thing that you would want to really do is to make sure that your email, most importantly, has two-factor authentication enabled, so that it's requiring you to not only be you, but to also have access to your phone to log in. And the reason for this is that emails are used to reset things.
Right? Blake, are there other email services that have two-factor?
I'm sure that there are, and I should probably know a lot more about this, but for right now I'm so wrapped up in spreading the easiest way to do it that I don't know a lot of other ways yet that I'm going to...
We're pretty much saying if you want to be secure with your Bitcoins, you're going to have to use two-factor on your Gmail and two-factor on your Bitcoins, right?
Yep, exactly. If you just have it on your Coinbase or other things like that and not on your email, someone can get into your email, reset your 2FA, and it is not effective. And that's happened to a lot of people, too, that don't quite fully grasp the concept of you have to secure your email and your hot wallet account with the service in order to be safe.
So can I set up a fake Gmail account and just do this right now? Like,
My only concern with you doing that is that I'm not 100% sure about the information that we're going to have to put in and what people can see, and so I don't know if we should risk it before we go through it, you and I individually. And then go through.
Who cares? It's just some made-up account, right? Like, it's not
I'm paranoid, man. I work in security, so I'm always going to be like, let's not do it.
No, you make a Gmail account, go ahead and start out. What we really need is just to take an existing Gmail account and to add Google Authenticator to that account.
Well, tell me where you do it in Google, because it's been a while. You go into the little wheel in the top right-hand corner when you're signed into your Gmail account, that little gear thing. Then you go down and click Settings.
Yep, and I believe it's security, and then maybe even under applications. They change their settings quite a bit, so it's hard for me to be able to tell people exactly. Maybe I'll even go out and get some screenshots.
Yeah, I mean, this is important. This is the step that people aren't taking. They're like, yeah, I know. Oh, I'll set that up eventually. And then they get hacked, and they're like, oh, I should have done that a long time ago when I knew about it.
Here it is. I think I've got the World Crypto Network account, and I don't think it's set up. So let me go.
Oh, so...
Might be able to do it right here.
Yeah,
everybody that's on the show right now should absolutely have two-factor on your email, just because we are more public than other people, so that makes you into a target, and you definitely want to have it on your email.
Well, they don't make it easy.
You have to have money to be a target.
Well, data and information and reputation, I mean, it's all targetable.
That's true. That's true. So it says it's under, I guess, account settings.
Accounts and
password. You can change your password recovery options. That's very good.
Other Google account settings. Are they really burying it under there?
I don't know.
Let me jump out and take a look too. Mine might be different because it's already active.
That is very buried.
Grant access.
Is there having to do all that?
This is really
it's buried because if you activate it not knowing what you're doing, it could be bad. I mean, it would be hard to fully activate it not knowing what you were doing, but if you somehow manage to do that, it would be like, I have no idea how to ever get into my stuff again. So I think that might be why it's buried.
In the Google Gmail settings, and I'm not seeing it in the general settings. you go to accounts and import, and it has change password, password recovery option, and other Google account settings. Other account settings just takes you to another page. So I think the way to get it is to go to the two-step verification settings page, which you'd have to just Google. Let's see. I'll show you my phone number. So there it is.
Also, if you go to your smart device and you go to your smartphone or your Android or iPhone or whatever, and you go through your app store, it's a free app, so you can quote-unquote purchase it, but it's free. And then when you start to set up the authentication software in your phone, I think it links you to where you have to click on and go to get your email to accept it, and that might be the easiest way.
Oh, no, this is easy. I can tell you guys. Go to accounts.google.com when you're signed into the Google account that you want to set up two-factor authentication on, right? Accounts.google.com, and then just click on Security. You'll see a little tab that says two-step verification under password, and then it'll either say disabled or set up, or enabled or disabled, and then a link for setting it up. And then from there, you can start to set it up. So very easy. It is just a couple of clicks once you start from accounts.google.com. But
yeah. Log into your G Plus or your Gmail or whatever your Google thing that you have that you want to secure. And again, google.com/settings/security. Up at the top, they have personal info, security, language, data tools, account history. Under security, for example, mine says two-step verification enabled. And if you go to this page and it doesn't say two-step verification enabled, you need to be very aware of the risk that poses to your digital storage of value.
But how do you know? See, because you told me that text is not safe, so I'm going to have to change that, because right now I've got mine doing text. So
just to walk them through the process, it does start out by linking your account to your phone number. So the first step is that it sends you a text message. The second step is that you send them a verification code. Then you can choose to trust your local computer, which for now we're going to do. And the last step is to turn on two-step verification. But unfortunately, Blake, it seems like they're turning on text messaging as the default way to turn this on. So people are going to have to go through 2 rounds of settings if they want to get to Google Authenticator, is what it's looking like to me.
Well, I think that if we were to download it directly from the Play Store and go through it that way, that it would be maybe not as simple as what Derek said, but it would, it's still going to start out with SMS. You have to change it.
No, listen, because once I got set up, this took only the time you guys were talking. I went to accounts.google.com. I clicked set up two-factor authentication. I put in my, it already knew my phone number. And then I said, send me a text message to confirm. I put in that number, and then it's like, okay, great, you're set up. Do you want to now use Google Authenticator?
Well, and the first thing we didn't talk about yet is app-specific passwords and how annoying this is going to get. You have to use different passwords if you use different apps that access your Google account now, because your main password is too safe. But yeah, after you do put in your address, your account verification code.
Not convenient, so we should never expect that to be the case, but it's incumbent upon us in the new decentralized future. We all need to take charge of our own security. It's not going to be convenient, but it isn't really, really hard, but we also have to, it's really important. We now are the keyholes to our bank accounts, and they've become worth picking.
Well, wait, why can't it be convenient too? Google Authenticator is pretty convenient.
Yeah, it's convenient. I'm not saying it's totally inconvenient, but to understand risk and to really try to understand where the failure points are, it's not something that you can totally outsource to somebody else. Like in legal nomenclature, there's non-delegable duties and stuff, and security is becoming one of those, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that
to keep going with the how-to, even though we can't show it to you, the next step, after you've confirmed your phone number, it says switch to app. Once you say switch to app, it says which kind of phone do you have, Android, iPhone, BlackBerry. Then you can continue. Then on your Authenticator app, you just push the pencil icon in the upper right-hand corner that creates it allows you to edit the different Authenticator things you have. Then you push plus at the bottom, click scan barcode, and then it's just got a QR code right on the screen that has like the key in it, right, for your Google Authenticator. Once you scan the barcode, it'll add a new entry to your list of little codes that it resets every minute. And once you have one of those code generator things, you type in the code into the Google Authenticator webpage, and then you push verify and save, and now Google Authenticator setup is successful. And now when you log into the email that I just set this up on, you have to put in your password, then you have to get your cell phone, then you have to go into this app, then you have to put in this code that changes every minute. This makes your account secure. You have to do this if you want your account to be secure. This is two-factor authentication. Text messaging is a joke. Email is a joke. The other problem with your text messages is a lot of people have Google Voice now, or they have their text messages forwarded to their email for convenience, and that's unsafe. That's everything in one pot. So all you have to do is hack into that one spot, you get everything, and that's why they're taking your money.
And people are like, why is SMS not secure? It's like, well, let's take a look at what happened to Sony with the PlayStation Network, with the giant, devastating hack that they had going on with them. They had an inherently insecure system that was running credit card and data and financial information. So, like, basically, if you work for a Fortune 25 financial institution or bank, basically any Fortune 500 company, and you have access to material and important data, you already have to use two-factor authentication. You should already know about it. And anybody that is using Bitcoin, like, it's the kind of the same standard. If you work for a giant company that has to mitigate risk, you use it. If you put a bank in your pocket, you have to use it too, and it's really incumbent upon you to do that.
And even though they were hacked, those RSA little tokens that you're talking about, Blake, really are what we're talking about here. The RSA created special little authenticator tokens that created a little LCD screen that would tell you your code. And this is how they control access to their computers or their important data, their vaults, etc. And this is now how you can control access to your Bitcoins, is with Google Authenticator. You can have this kind of Tom Clancy CIA spy updating every minute code book, because that's how important your money is. It's worth having a little code book.
Yeah, and basically the biggest security breach in recent history was when the RSA ring was breached at Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed Martin's a security contractor for like the CIA and all kinds of that stuff. They said that they thought it was China, but regardless of who it was, like the fact that somebody getting through their security for one institution, like that's, to me, almost proof that in the future we need decentralized and compartmentalized security, because giant storage of value like that, enough people will try to break into the house because they see the gold on the tables, and they'll bring back more tools, they'll bring back more people, and decentralized security is really required for the future and for Bitcoin to be really successful.
And look at the honeypot they created. All of their little key fobs were hacked and worthless because the entire code was hacked before they put them in the little key fobs. So they had to replace all of their fobs, where we're using the iPhone, we're using the Android. You can update your phone. You can get a new version of Google Authenticator. Now, we haven't talked about yet what to do when you lose your phone. This is really important. At Google Authenticator, in the same section where you turn on the Authenticator app, have your backup cell phone numbers, they also have an action for backup codes. You can print or download backup Google codes that will let you into your account even if you lose your cell phone. So this is pretty important stuff here.
So wait, should you print those before you lose your phone or after?
Before would be best.
You have to do it before you lose your phone, especially if you're using a bank in your pocket, not just for your own self, but to make automatic payments and stuff that you really need to keep up with. Then you're going to want to do that beforehand. There's some features in Coinbase, and I think maybe even BitPay, with automatic payouts. And especially if you're a miner and the amount of mining difficulty is adjusting continually, and you have automatic payouts that are set to go, you need to be able to access your account to stop or suspend or adjust those. And if you lose your phone, you want to print out those keys before you do that.
So I can save them to a file and just keep them on my laptop?
Well, that would be making it completely insecure. Unfortunately, it's kind of impossible to print these codes properly. It goes back to the whole secure paper wallets thing once you're connected.
Whoa. If I save the text file, why is that insecure?
Because your system is inherently insecure, because we haven't been able to go and look at every single 1 and 0 and confirm that it is secure. And that's almost the situation we're all in.
Well then, what's the point?
The point is doing things that make it so that it doesn't matter if your base system is insecure.
If you really want to be secure, you're going to have to use Tails Linux.
No. So, okay, wait.
That's
because I'm mad because I just clicked that button, the save to text. So now I have to like go through Google Authenticator all over again and be like, oh hey, re-register, because if anyone accessed my laptop, then they could just jump into my Google Authenticator, and the two-step all this doesn't even matter?
Well, this gets into risk management. I mean, IT security is basically computer and information science, and then the entire giant, convoluted, complex study of risk management. How much risk can you manage?
I didn't have to know all this. Every Bitcoin user has to know all this crap?
No, we can make a process.
You want to be your own bank? You thought it was going to be easy? You thought that being a bank was easy?
What you and I are doing is trying to create a process document to help people. That's hard.
I'm mad because now all those steps that I took are pointless, right? I mean,
No.
So how do I back up? If I just saved the text file of the backup stuff, and you're telling me don't do that because we don't know if your laptop is secure or not, which it probably isn't. So, I can't.
Working backwards, you needed to boot to Tails Linux before you tried to touch something that was secure.
Well, you could read Christoph Atlas's entire book and be sure that you're totally secure, but that is a lot of information to take on. So you have to decide how much you want to know, how much risk you want to manage, knowing that you probably can't ever manage all of your risk unless you make your own operating system.
Yeah.
So I feel like giving up.
No, don't feel like that. We'll all help each other, and I can help you guys, and I know all this, and we're good friends, so you can always ask me, and so can anybody else.
But now I'm stuck because I've saved a text file that has backup verification codes, and I want to, I guess, not have those backup verification codes, or I can generate new ones, right?
Yep, generate new ones, maybe write them down or remember them, and then delete your web history and stuff. And is that 1,000,000% secure guaranteed? Well, almost nothing is, but
it goes back to printing paper wallets. You need to boot to Tails Linux, log in, set your Google Authenticator settings there, print it with your printer while you're connected to Tails Linux, and then when you reboot, that'll all be wiped away. It's pretty much, we're all going to have to live off of 2 USB keys. One USB key with Tails Linux, and another USB key with your files in a TrueCrypt or some kind of new thing, because TrueCrypt is insecure.
Right.
Well, I agree and disagree about Tails Linux, because where are you getting your version of Tails Linux? If you're getting it from BitTorrent or Pirate Bay or something like that, we don't know what's been slipstreamed or put in there anyway.
They have something that you can verify.
Okay, I agree.
Like hash or something, hash the file, and you're supposed to get some code. Speaking of carrying around 2 USB drives, I'm one step ahead of you, Thomas. This is what I keep in my purse. I've got Tails Linux on this little guy. It's just a little 2 gig little USB drive, and it's got a whole operating system in here. And when new Tails Linux comes up, I just update it. And then the other one has like TrueCrypt and all the other stuff that you might need. You know, because you're going to need 2 USBs whenever you're dealing with Tails Linux.
That's your computer right there, Derek. You're holding it in your hand. That's the computer of the future. We're going to have to give up on all this customization stuff that we love, all of the configuration stuff that we hate. We're going to have to do it over and over again until Tails Linux gets better. And computing really goes toward this kind of disposable model. I was talking to a guy at the Bitcoin Beauty show last night, and he was talking about a program that would reformat your cell phone every morning. Because that's pretty much where we're going. You're going to have to reformat every morning if you want to be secure.
What's the point?
You can't
security.
Like
what's the point? The point is we're getting back to having to go out and hunt like a lion and risk your life for your food every day again, man. And we don't want to get all the way back there, but we have to start moving back towards that paradigm because stuff has gotten so messed up with all the collectivism, and the consequences of all this stupid stuff we've done is starting to get weird.
Oh, okay. I kind of follow what you're saying, though. It sounds like people were trusting centralized institutions a little too much with security, and now people are finding those weaknesses, and we have to take a few steps back and then start going forward again. Like, let's go forward in a secure, decentralized way.
Yep, let's not try to tow the sinking Titanic into shore with all of its giant damage and hauling water with it. Let's just leave it and build a new ship that we know is going to be good from the beginning, because obviously it sank once, and if we repair it, hopefully we can repair it, but if we can't, so it's the whole paradigm of it's better to start over with a better foundation sometimes.
Okay, so what do you think? Am I going to get hacked now that I've done all this stuff live on air?
I don't know, man. You didn't type in your private key, so a keylogger wouldn't be able to find it. So someone would have to have access to your computer in such a way that they could go and find that file, and they'd have to look for it. I wouldn't be super concerned about it. I mean, I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over it, but just
I generated new codes, and I'm not printing them. I'm not writing them down. I don't know. Well, should I wait? Actually, I should generate new codes and then write them down on paper, right?
Well, you should just print it from Tails Linux.
Oh, I should do it in Tails Linux.
Yep, and we just need to learn how to use Tails and install the printer driver and get a USB printer, a standard one that works with Tails. And
That's not.
you need to know how to do that for paper wallets anyway. So it's pretty much paper wallets and Google verification backup codes should be done in Tails Linux. It's starting to be the theme that this is where we're going to live, is Tails.
Yeah, but couldn't you just use a computer that's totally offline anyway for making your paper wallets? That would also be one way. Just put an old tower in the corner of your room, and that's just for making paper wallets. That would also be an okay way to do it.
like damage the NIC off the motherboard.
For example, yeah, you could. I mean, as long as it doesn't have Wi-Fi or whatever, that's disabled or taken out, you can also just use an old computer, and when you want to connect, and when you want to make a paper wallet, you could just connect that to the printer. I mean, some people were even talking about the printer. It stores information too, and you have to, I don't know exactly, because, I mean, the printer has like a kind of operating system as well. So I don't know if
there's memory in a printer that you could try to get stuff out of it. So that's another source of concern. Also with Tails Linux, if you're using Tails Linux for a long, long time, and then you go back to try to use Bitcoin with it, you have to make sure. I don't know if you can like stop X and bring up the process IDs and then like verify every single process and you know what's going on. But you would want to use a fresh installation of Tails Linux from their official site before you do this.
And you'd want to reboot, because every time you reboot in Tails Linux, you get a brand new edition. It just runs again. Everything's clean. So
I'm wanting centralization again. I mean, I know Blake is talking about, oh hey, decentralization is more secure, it's the way of the future, but I really just want someone to take care of this for me and just be like, step 1, step 2, step 3, here's what you do, now pay me and you're secure.
Well, then they're going to spend your money 33 to 1 after a while, and you're not going to have any money left. It's like, imagine how much it would cost you for a giant fireproof safe that could hold the amount of money that your Bitcoin wallet could hold. It would be absolutely inconceivably expensive.
Yeah, I think that there has the idea of a crypto party needs to be expanded. I don't know, I think I talked about it once before. I've been to a few of them here. Luckily, there's a group here that does them. But basically, it's just an event where you go and you learn about how to encrypt stuff. And I mean, it was geared towards encryption in general, like PGP, Tor, and Tails and stuff like that. But they were talking about Bitcoin a little, but the people were not really into Bitcoin. They come from more like the hacker side. But we could start a kind of crypto party movement kind of thing, more geared to Bitcoin, where you just go and you learn about security. It's really like hands-on, and it's a decentral. So like.
The thing about that, Theo, is before people used to wonder, why do we need that security? I don't do anything bad. I'm not a dangerous person. Why do I need to encrypt my email? Well, the answer now is that you've turned your computer into a bank. You've put your money on your computer, and unless it's in a paper wallet, it's a hot bank. That means
amateur hour's over.
Drive right by. So unless you encrypt it, unless you have two-factor authentication, unless you print it out onto paper. Also, we were talking paper wallets. Not that they're a sponsor or anything, but they're cool guys, and they're sending me one of these, and I paid for some of it. And it's a Piper wallet printer. And what this is it's a Raspberry Pi, so it's a very small computer inside of there that creates the randomness for Bitcoin. And every couple of minutes, if you push this button, it'll spit out another paper wallet. These I don't think they're going to last forever. They're kind of receipt paper. I'm not sure about the ink, but these are paper wallets. They are secure. And if it's too hard for you to boot to Tails Linux and you have more than $200 worth of Bitcoin, then you should buy this printer for $200 to put your Bitcoin on, because if you don't print your Bitcoin out, they're going to steal it from you. right?
Yeah, laminated, fireproof, safe, Piper. If you don't want to, if your time is really valuable and you make a lot of money and have a lot of money from Bitcoin, you don't have time to deal with this stuff. There are some different solutions that you can go into and use. But I mean, the reason that I said that you have to know this and know risk and stuff is that sometimes it's impossible to identify those products without having a solid knowledge of information risk management and things like that.
Yeah. And
I feel
another
like
thing,
getting one of those pipe anyway. I mean, I know how to use Tails Linux, but that seems like it would be useful for friends and family who are just like, I can't take time to figure out an operating system based on, something like Linux. But Piper would be easy. Just print out a receipt and say, here, scan this QR code and put your Bitcoin on that. Now it's offline.
And that's all they have to do, really, is that, like, when I get my Bitcoin ATM from Skyhook, I'm going to put the printer right next to it and print the thing, give them the wallet, have them put their dollar in, scan their wallet, and they'll be done. And they'll have $1 in Bitcoin. And that's it. It's a demonstration purpose only type thing. So, and I'm even going to have a sticker on it. They can donate money back to the ATM if they'd like to donate to the ATM fund. So,
yeah, it kind of what you were saying before about the other conferences with cryptography and stuff like that. It seems like there's an influx of capital into Bitcoin and people into Bitcoin that don't understand the philosophy and don't understand the security, and to some extent don't really even understand the project itself.
Exactly.
So I don't want to try to push people away or scare people away from Bitcoin, especially people that have a lot of money. But I think that we also need to let people know, hey, we're kind of the core group of people that invented the philosophy and the security that made this system work, and maybe we should all kind of work together instead of trying to co-opt it in such a way that if it was successful, it would kill it. Like, if Bitcoin gets co-opted in the name of the state, it'll kill it. And what'll happen is something else will come up. Digital storage of value won't die, but they'll mess up Bitcoin. So hopefully I don't think that that's possible, but I don't want them to be trying to do it either.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And about the security thing, what's happening and what also happened last year is that you had people that got into Bitcoin just in 2013, and it cost $50 or $100, and they got interested, and then all of a sudden they're worth $1,000 each, and so when the price goes up again, they're going to be they're going to be such a bigger target than ever before, So whenever we get these big price surges, all the hackers and criminals are going to be targeting even more. So I mean, right now we're at that level. So I don't know if there's really like anyone keeping stats about how many things get hacked or whatever. But I mean, just think about it. I mean, when it gets to 900 and 1,000, the hackers are going to go nuts. You know what I mean? And everyone that thought, oh, I just have a little bit, I don't need to think about all this stuff, all of a sudden it's worth a lot, and they have to watch out. And I think that's one other thing that people, maybe they don't pay attention, they just have some in the background or whatever, and they're not thinking about when the price explodes.
I think that's absolutely right, Theo. People have never had this kind of value on their computer before. They've never had their computer directly connected to this kind of value before, and they don't have any kind of security procedures with which to handle this new money, which, like you say, if they just bought a couple years ago, it's gone up 10, 20 times in value. It's crazy. They don't realize how much they have now.
Exactly.
Hey, about something that you brought up earlier, Thomas, I think that's a really cool idea about having a Skyhook right next to one of those Piper wallets. Would that be kind of like a service that you'd be providing for people of like, hey, you can buy some Bitcoin and then lock it away securely all in one quick stop?
I think it's just a really great tool to explain Bitcoin, because I know we've talked about before that when you show someone a paper wallet and it's got a public key and it's got a private key, you're really talking about the core of Bitcoin, which is cryptography. It's the ability of me to send an encrypted message to you. It used to be just a message, but now that message is money, which we store in a ledger, which we all share. So it's a little more complicated, but that getting back to that basics of public and private right there on the thing, and to go ahead and have them send it and then have them import it. And by the end of the hangout or we'll eat some pizza or something, by the end of that, your money will be imported back in your wallet. We'll have gone from paper back to wallet to paper, like to move that money around. Like if you haven't done it yet, and maybe you even have more than $1 worth of Bitcoin, but you should take that $1 and you should send it to paper, and you should bring it back in. and then you should send it to paper again. And you should be experimenting with this new money. You should be having fun with it, with small amounts, of course, safe, dollars, little amounts. But you should not just be sitting on it, because eventually someone's going to come and they're going to take your pile.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fundamentals that we need to talk about with Bitcoin. Basically, like when we're talking about it being hacked or stolen, what we're talking about is not the actual system being hacked or stolen. What we're talking about is, let's say you had money or gold that represented Bitcoin, and then you put it into a room with an easily pickable lock. The lock got picked and somebody got in. That lock represents your password that you made, and passwords can be strong or weak. And when people hack Bitcoin or they hack passwords, what they do is they use a giant rainbow table or some other such technology that has most popular passwords or whatever flagged and weighted at the top so that they're tried first. So there's actually a lot of people that are called script kiddies that will use these different things to try to steal. But there's not as many script kiddies. I mean, there's a lot more script kiddies than there are hackers. And hackers and hacktivists I have a lot of respect for, because they work very hard and they create new stuff. But script kiddies don't. They use other people's tools. They actually think that they made them, and then they use them to try to steal other people's stuff. So very rarely is it that you have a full-blown hacker going after your stuff. Usually it's a script kiddie. And if you take the precautions that we need to from an information science perspective, the script kiddies cannot get your stuff. I don't want people to think that Bitcoin is insecure.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, we have put out a whole bunch of piles of gold for the script kiddies. It is a gold-filled landscape now. It's really
and
like
script
that.
kiddies getting your gold is like the worst disaster ever, because script kiddies are just the scum of the earth.
Yeah. So this is all. I think that was really good, the thing you did with 2FA and all that, a really good run through. But I see another dimension and another problem or issue that needs to be addressed. So basically, the story that we're telling here is that people went to these conferences and they got their Bitcoin stolen for different reasons. But I think, if I understand correctly, sometime during that conference, they accessed either their email account or tried to access their Bitcoins. And I was thinking, yeah, that's really shitty and all that. We already talked about how shitty that is. But one other thing is that you can just have a wallet directly on your phone. So it's just like a wallet for my money. I mean, if I get paid, I don't put all my pay in my wallet and walk down the street, because I might get held up or I might drop my wallet or whatever, right? Well, it should be the same thing. You need to have different wallets, little ones. And so I've got a phone here. I mean, you can't really see it on the camera, but whatever. I've got a wallet on here, or I've got even different ones on here, and they have different levels of security. Of course, if my phone is compromised, if there's a keylogger on my phone, then that security is also compromised. But I just wanted to say that you can let's say I want to spend half a Bitcoin at the conference because I want to buy T-shirts and stuff, then I could load my phone wallet with that, and that's just like my fun money, and that's not linked to my stash.
Exactly.
So,
that's your hot wallet, and you think of that as that one, and then your other ones are savings. And if you get, unfortunately, we're gonna have to talk about Davi here, but if you're making money selling T-shirts, you kind of need to be vaulting it like you're a real company. You know how at the end, a company makes too much money, they put the money in the safe. They come to your little cash drawer and they clean it out, they put it in the safe. That's what you kind of need to do with paper wallets, and it's unfortunate. We did have a paper wallet generator there. It just didn't come together to put it on paper right then. And that's why it's so hard with security. If you miss an opportunity to go to paper, like right now we're talking about it, we're lecturing you, we're saying you should get this really hard code app, and we're saying you should download Tails Linux and boot to it, and I've done a couple videos and I'm going to do a couple more, and we're talking all the security stuff. Well, the reason we're talking about it now is we don't want to hear from you in a month from now when you're stolen from. Right? It's going to happen. If you have 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoins, less than a Bitcoin, someone's going to come along and pile those all together and get a bunch of Bitcoins, because they're going to steal them from SMS people. They're going to steal them from email activation people. They're going to steal them from essentially lazy or fearful people that don't want to try out new technology. Today's your day to try out Google Authenticator. You're going to become a spy. If you do this correctly, this little app on your phone is going to sit there all the day calculating out a little code based upon some factor of your phone that makes it unique, like the time and the date and your serial number. I have no idea how they create the little factor thing, but it creates a unique token on your phone, like James Bond.
Yeah, it's even beyond James Bond. James Bond, I mean, this is a wet dream for him, so people should be excited about it.
Exactly. They used to have write-off pads, is what they talk about in the books. How they were actual physical printed pads that a computer, like a big, room-size computer, had printed out to make them safe. And every day they'd use a new pad, and that's how they sent secure messages. But now you can do it on your phone for nothing, and it'll make your Bitcoin safe. And if you don't do it, your Bitcoins are unsafe.
And when you do it, people think that you're cool.
They do. All the women at the thing last night, when I told them about Google Authenticator, they were really impressed. Like they might not be ready to install it yet. They gave the "I have too few Bitcoins" excuse, but next time I meet with them, I think we're going to be installing Google Authenticator on everybody's phone. So.
And let's plan for success. I mean, plan to be successful, people. Put it on now.
Yep.
I want to know what you guys think the danger would be. Like, okay, a listener of this program has just heard, okay, these guys care a lot about security and Google Authenticator, but I'm not going to do that. What would be the danger if nobody listened and nobody locked up their coins? What sort of world would that be like?
Well, I think the first thing that would happen is a lot of people would go to Chicago coming up here. I'll be there. They're going to use the open Wi-Fi, which is going to be, in my opinion, a distribution information frame or access point that is going to be compromised. Either someone's going to clip something.
Money.
So yeah, that script kiddie will get a lot more money, and then he'll use that money to steal from more people. And the more people that don't secure their stuff, the more the script kiddies will go in and try to steal it, and then they'll be rewarded by it, like some kind of gambling or theft heist thing.
And essentially, you're financing their trip to Chicago. I might not go to Chicago because of financing. The script kiddies who stole from our friends at the last convention obviously have the money to be there, so they're going to be there. You hear that, script kiddies? We're going to see you. We're going to find you. We're going to hack your hack networks. No, we're not going to do that, but you're going to be there. You're going to make money off these noobs and these suckers. And all we're saying is, hey, noobs and suckers, get Google Authenticator. Split your money up into different piles. Keeping it all in one pile like a savings account doesn't make you safe. It makes you a target. It makes you easy money for someone who's going to take advantage of you, noob and sucker. And I'm calling you noob and sucker, so you'll change your ways. Change your ways.
What I was wondering is, because I'm not really expert about it, but I wonder how hard it would be just to get like a small virtual private network just for your phone, or just to make transactions with, so that I don't have to use public Wi-Fi to do a transaction. You know what I mean? That would solve. I mean, it's a pain right now. It's kind of a little bit of a pain if I'm just like at a conference, or if I'm at a shop. I mean, we're supposed to be able to use Bitcoin, day to day, and what if the shop says, yeah, we accept Bitcoin, and they're hanging there with some kind of hacking thing to try to get our stuff? Then we need a secure connection to the internet. I mean, I could use, okay, if I'm in a brick and mortar shop, then maybe I have a connection as part of my plan. But if I'm somewhere at another city or wherever, I might have to use the Wi-Fi, and there needs to be a better way to just get a connection. This level needs to be.
That would be neat if they could build it into the wallet client. Maybe the FIVA wallet. They seem really responsive. About that, VPNs. Tell us a little about it from a security type perspective as well.
Well, I mean, if we're going to have a virtual private network or even a physical wide area network, I mean, we kind of have that with 4G. What I would do is, like, if I'm using Coinbase, I have some money in my Coinbase wallet, I would go to the merchant and be like, I want to buy this stuff here. Let's do the transaction. If I don't have a data connection, my Coinbase app will say pending. And then I can go back out to the surface or whatever and have the transaction sync, and then come back and be like, see, look, it's synced. Most people will trust you, but, I mean, unless you want to create some manual, like VNC-esque kind of encrypted tunnel on your phone and then do that, but that would be, I don't want to give a primer on that. That'd be kind of hard. Now, so I would just say...
You get a good distinction there, Blake. The 4G network, the network that people pay to get access to, AT&T, Verizon, that would be secure. The Wi-Fi would be insecure. So would you suggest that people turn off their Wi-Fi at these conferences?
Yeah, actually, I would probably turn your phone onto airplane mode for as much as you can stand it. If you don't have a 4G connection anyway, just do that. And then when you get outside, turn your 4G on and off. But especially in a very high-risk area, in these conferences, these really early on tech, security, and finance conferences, which is what they are a huge target. And people need to be aware that people are going to be there trying to steal their money, setting up in advance, and praying when they're there.
Essentially, hacker and script kiddie conventions with a little bit bit of Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, your point about putting your phone on airplane mode has me thinking, how much longer is it until we see a whole other device being used for Bitcoin? Like,
John McAfee's Decentral. People are very excited about it. I don't know if it's going to be Ghostware. I haven't heard a lot about it since he announced it, but that's kind of where people are going with that device, Decentral.
is that like Treasure?
Yeah, the Trezor is what I was going to mention. Yeah.
The Treasure, I haven't heard of it.
Trezor.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well,
That's
it's
just,
spelled it's spelled like he's saying Trezor, but we're pronouncing it like treasure. But it's like a way to keep your private keys in a little boxy thing, and it encrypts your private keys. Is that basically what it is, guys?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I think Decentral is a little bit dissimilar. It's like a big Wi-Fi network repeaters type system that's actually going to try to build a new internet, which is really, really, really ambitious of John McAfee. I don't know if he can do it, but if he can, I'm really excited about it.
That sounds more similar to Jeff Garzick's Bitcoin in Space plan, which I saw him present at the Bitcoin and the Beltway convention. If you want to check out the video, it's on World Crypto Network. And what that actually is going to do is put satellites into low orbit, a bunch of very small satellites, with the goal of giving Bitcoin access to the world. And that would be like Africa, everywhere, like backcountry, the whole
We're
thing.
overloading Derek J here.
Yeah, my mind exploded. That was, I mean, there's so much going on in the
Bitcoin
development of
Beltway. I mean, I was poking fun of Bitcoin in space on my show, but I went to his speech. He's got it laid out. He's got big investors. He's got plans on how to spread out the satellites, how to build a generic launcher so that he could just launch a whole bunch of them. You know, it's good. I think it'll happen. I want it to happen really bad.
Yeah,
I think
that sounds good.
I'm going to space with Richard Branson.
You are?
That's just a ride to space. Are you gonna go, Blake?
I hope so. I don't have any tickets yet.
All right.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll go someday.
The one with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt goes into the sun before I check out that one. So.
I want to bring Neil deGrasse Tyson so they don't let us crash.
So I wanted to just say something really quick about the airplane mode. I know it's a little bit hyper paranoid, but yeah, at least for the NSA or whatever, whoever's trying to listen to you, airplane mode is not really enough. You need to just take the whole battery out, and if you really wanted to speak to each other and make 100% sure that no one was listening, then take the whole battery out, or you could wrap it.
I have a
in
non-removable
metal.
battery.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the conspiracy with Apple and those that's when you need the foil. That's why you always need to have foil with you, or a potato chip bag, like in the movies. Potato chip bag works well.
You can buy systems on the internet where you can put your phone in a little Faraday cage, and you can still operate your phone through the window, but it's completely locked in there. So that's an idea. Also, Theo was saying airplane mode is also very useful. It lets you charge your device faster. If you turn airplane mode on, it turns the radios off. And Theo's idea about turning off your phone to be secure, I'm sure you guys have all heard the TSA has new rules. If you're coming into the United States from Europe, you have to have your phone or your laptop on. Yeah. People aren't sure. Well, I mean, the obvious reason they say is that people have basically built bombs inside of laptops and phones that can't be turned on, which it took them,
or weapons or knives or guns that they've hidden inside that are obscured by the different kinds of metal.
It took 13 years to come up with this. 13 years since the problem, and now they're closing the door on that. So you have to turn your phone on. I think a lot of people are also worried about them gathering all that data, because that's an incredible honeypot of free data right there. And as we all remember, when Google drove those little cars around the country, they were like, hey, let's scan for Wi-Fi. Let's see if there's any free Wi-Fi around here. And they built a whole database of free Wi-Fi, which is actually illegal in Europe, and no one seems to care in the United States. But, yeah, these companies, these corporations, these governments, free data.
They were sued in Canada, Tom.
Huh?
They were sued in Canada.
Yeah? How'd that go?
They won. The Canadian court won that they weren't allowed to scoop up people's private information via Wi-Fi. So I think they had to pay like $100 fine.
At my office, I run a data center that's very secure, and I have Comcast like business, and they turned on an Xfinity Wi-Fi signal from my office that people could connect to without asking me. and I had to go in and remove that specific piece of equipment because they told me they'd turn it off, but it's like, well, you don't do what you're going to say, so I'm going to go remove that piece of equipment. So I don't know if any legal action has come against Comcast for doing that, but that was pretty like, absolutely, that's not okay.
Wait, they were providing Wi-Fi and you had a problem with that?
They were providing free Wi-Fi from my data center. So my data center, which is an extremely secure location, it's got the most stringent security possible, they just started turning on a free Wi-Fi signal that people that have Comcast business accounts can log into like anywhere in my building until I went in and actually disabled that piece of equipment to stop the signal.
And you were like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, I was like, no, this is my gateway. This is my stuff. Like, I think that they have secure protocols and stuff going through, but I didn't design them. I don't know what's in them. I'm not going to be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to risk my entire data center. I was really mad about it.
Yeah, I can understand that. Well, that's weird. You going to sue them?
You know, I don't know. I have my irons in so many fires that I don't know if it would be productive to do it, but I am interested to hear if anybody else sues it. If somebody else gets it rolling, I'll jump onto a class action.
Well, you don't have to do anything. You just hire a lawyer, and then they sue them. You don't have to file paperwork.
Yeah, I work with my lawyer all the time, all day, and we do contract law and stuff too, so I need my lawyer for other stuff sometimes.
Okay, your lawyer's busy suing other people. Good.
No, he's busy making sure that I don't get sued.
Oh, all right. Well, you got to get another lawyer, one that sues other people.
We need 50,000 lawyers, an army of lawyers.
Now, I try and limit my interactions with lawyers to 0.
Oh, me too, but mine is a really good friend of mine. He's gotten people off with nullification for selling raw milk and stuff, and he's...
oh, whoa, who's this guy? Is he? Is it public who this lawyer is?
He doesn't want me to talk about him and his name because we both work in information security and risk management so much. But,
well, I like the raw milk issue, and I would like to learn more about him. So
there's a couple of attorneys working on the DRE case, and you would be interested in that too. I won't tell you which one he is, but there's attorneys working on the DRE case, and that's the drug recognition expert case. Basically, at Occupy Wall Street and stuff, the cops were getting people messed up and being like, oh, we're just going to observe what it looks like to be messed up on these chemicals. So then he came and was doing legal exploration. He was like, where did you get the chemicals that you were giving to people? And they were like, uh-oh. He's like, did you give a Schedule 1 narcotic to a vulnerable adult? And they were like, uh-oh. So everybody denied, and then they finally went through the station and asked one guy that was like, yeah, we do that every day. We do that all the time. We got to see what they look like when they're messed up, and then blew it open, and now it's going to trial. So that's pretty cool too. Yeah,
well, all right. Well, that is very interesting. I would like to hear more about that some other time.
It's fun.
Yeah. Hey, about security. Are we still on security, or are we moving on with topics? Because we've been staying on this one topic for the full hour. This has been very good.
One more thing on security. They do have a mycelium, and I'm thinking about. I'm supposed to not spend money, but I might buy this for $50 here. It's not going to come out till October, and I could get a T-shirt and a device for $50. Sounds pretty fair to me. But let's see, it's a little USB device that is going to put into your printer. Now, I'm not sure what kind of printer they think has a USB port, so that might be a big deal breaker for me. But
most new ones do.
Really? Oh, I got a new one, and I'm going to go check it. If it doesn't, I'm not ordering this whole thing. Oh, look
at
it.
Did it cost $8.99?
Wow, these mycelium people can make animations. We need to get with that. I don't know what this is about, but I'll bet it's about secure wallets.
I don't know. She's too old to be secure. I'm prejudiced against age.
No, you can't play video. Everyone gets me. I don't know.
She's so old she didn't survive. She's going into heaven and stuff. She's got. I told you she was old.
Dude.
Thomas, play the video.
Play the video. You know everyone owns video.
Safe haven for one's fortune is not easy nowadays.
It's not easy.
I recommend to have a closer look at Bitcoin, a digital alternative to gold and silver. To invest in Bitcoin, you have to understand two things: the Bitcoin address and the private key. The Bitcoin address is like
pretty great video.
Bank account.
Feels fancy.
Can send you money. The private key, however, is like the PIN code that you need.
Oh, this is just explaining Bitcoin? I thought that they were going to explain entropy.
Your private key.
Net entropy, please.
You lose your bitcoins, as any computer may be intruded by hackers. I deeply
Grandma!
She's beating that script kitty down.
it. But I use this jolly device called entropy. Each time you put it into the USB port of your printer, it generates a new Bitcoin address and private key, which you can print out as a paper wallet.
So your whole printer device got usurped by this USB key, bro.
The private key.
And so this wouldn't be a, yeah, but there's no BIP encryption, but I guess there's none on the printer device either, so. There it is.
I was just rustling your jimmies.
Wait, but no, Blake, you were making a point about printers having their own memory, right? So wouldn't this thing not be very effective if someone were to take your printer and then search through the memory and be like, oh, here's all the private keys?
Well, there's different ways that the hardware and software on a printer can be configured, and I would have to look at the actual hardware inside of the printer that Tom was looking at to make sure that it didn't have memory either, because I wouldn't want to criticize either one of them based on something that
all
would be
printers
a
have
shared
memory?
problem. They would have to have some kind of either memory storage or direct transmission of information live to be printed out, and then that would really be low fault tolerance. So I can't imagine there wouldn't be memory in it, but I could be wrong.
I mean,
Is that what's fault tolerance?
Fault tolerance refers to how much leeway you have when delivering a message. Like if I tell you something once and I'm only going to say it once, that's very low fault tolerance. If you don't hear me, that message isn't going to get through. Higher fault tolerance would be like TCP/IP or something like that, which has interrogation processes to enumerate and request dead or lost packets so that you can get the entire message across instead of just parts of it.
Really cool. Thanks for that explanation.
The real easy way would just to keep your old printer and just put it in the corner of the room, and when you want to print a wallet, put that USB thing in it, and then there you go. It's not connected to the internet, so it doesn't matter if it stores any information.
Yeah, but
it has to be one with
You have to
USB.
destroy it after it was done being used, though.
Yeah, exactly. You have to destroy it because I'm going to get raided by the feds. One day that's going to happen. So they're going to take
We
that
all
printer.
will.
Yeah, they're going to take the printer and be like, yoink, thanks for all your Bitcoin. So I have
paper wallets it print,
Yeah.
it doesn't have any encryption on them. They're not BIP 38 encryption. They're more like temporary paper wallets. And that's what the Piper wallets are as well, is kind of temporary wallets. They don't have the BIP 38 encryption. So they really are like Bitcoin's cash. If you find those wallets, you can get the money. So.
Okay, so we got to.
Nothing is permanently secure. We want to make that clear as well. Encryption is an obfuscation process which obfuscates data, and the inverse of the ciphertext application can be done over a long enough time period. So that's something else we have to consider when people think of security as an all-or-nothing 1-0 on-off system.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's all about obscuring things. It's not, there is no real security. So I think that we need to start using that word about obscuring things more, so that, because I think it can help some people understand it more, that it's not 100%, because obscuring something isn't 100%.
And obscuring goes back to a discussion I had with Ernie Hancock on Freedom's Phoenix. And Ernie was very mad because he was told that Bitcoin was pseudo-anonymous, right? And the word pseudo doesn't mean kind of.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's the word quasi, right? What the word pseudo means is like that you would have a number instead of your name. So that pseudo is like pseudonym, which is an alias. So that Bitcoin is alias anonymous, right? So if you have, Bitcoin that you got from a totally random source, like a Bitcoin ATM or a friend of a friend, and you put that into a random account and you used it to send to another random account, that transaction is anonymous because you used a pseudonymous system correctly, right?
Yeah, it's not like a pseudo-intellectual or a faux intellectual. It is like a pseudo, like an identity, like Satoshi Nakamoto.
Even pseudo and faux both mean fake. They both mean identity. We're talking about levels of identity. We're not talking about quasi, which means kind of. So it's this. I thought they think that it was kind of anonymous when really it was identifier-based anonymous. If you have a random Bitcoin number sending to random Bitcoin number, like we see with these large transactions or these old Bitcoins, where suddenly old Bitcoins start moving around and people get excited, right? That's because they know that number 57 is sending to number 62, and that's amazing. These old timers, this kind of knowledge is available because the blockchain. If you really understand the blockchain, if you understand that if I'm going to send $1 to you, I'm going to send -1 to my column and +1 to your column, and that has to go somewhere, and that somewhere is what we all download, then instinctively, if you understand Bitcoin, that like everyone can kind of see what I'm doing. Everyone can kind of see what you're doing. Like eventually we're going to kind of see what everybody's doing. It's an incredible social experiment that we're on.
And
So-
pseudo-anonymity can also refer to the fact that right now it's obscured, so it is practically impossible, but not physically impossible, to figure out the identity, which is why, from an information science nomenclature or parlance perspective, you would want to use that terminology as opposed to something else.
I have something weird that's on this topic of pseudonymity and anonymity and obfuscating, and this literally just happened in the mail. I got a little thank you note from my bank, saying thank you. This is from one of the tellers. Derek, we're here to make this a great experience. I hope you find or found a new car. Enjoy your summer. From the teller. There's no other reason for them sending this to me, and this is not an ad for TD Bank. Screw them. But
Those scumbags.
What sort of invasion of privacy is that they're mailing me a thank you letter on how I spend my money? I mean, that doesn't happen with Bitcoin, and that's one of the reasons why I like Bitcoin is I retain at least a little bit of privacy. I hate these banks. I don't want them sending me letters telling me, like, oh, we like what you're doing with your money over there. Like, no. Has anyone seen anything like this ever before? This is really weird to me.
That's like if I came up to you in the street and was like, I saw those underwear and socks you bought in
Seriously.
I'm sure they hired some marketing company that told them it was a good idea. But yeah, it's definitely an invasion of privacy. It's pretty unbelievable.
Hope you got that car, buddy.
He's got the big loop. Clearly likes you. It's a very sweet letter. I think you're taking it all wrong.
I mean,
maybe you should write a letter
that
back
car
to them.
again,
You need
but-
to write a thank you to the thank you. You know, thanks a lot for
They're pretty much asking for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
maybe they want to have
invasion
some
of my
feedback,
privacy in this correspondence.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell them that I'm choosing to close my account because you guys are being really creepy and looking at what I do with my money and then sending me thank you letters about it. Like,
We're also saying, do you have any credit unions in your area? Because basically a credit union is like not really a bank. It's more like a group of depositors who are working together to have a deposit system. And that's actually better than a fractional reserve bank. So if you have the choice, use a credit union near you.
can you sign up with a Coinbase account? Get that connected to a credit union?
Sure. I mean, it's like you get a Visa card, you get a checking account. It's just like any
like a
other
normal
bank.
It
But
depends on their e-commerce presence and level of development with e-commerce as far as if you can integrate with BitPay and Coinbase. But some of the major ones you definitely can.
They have checking accounts. You get the account number. You integrate. You can take the money in and out. A credit union is a bank for all intents and purposes, but it's organized differently at the core, and it's a little better if you're choosing, morally, if you have the choice.
Well, I agree, but there's even small banks that don't interface well with the different things because they don't have a big enough e-commerce presence. So I would
It's
just do
still a small bank. I mean, that's like a small cancer. Like, let's just keep playing ball.
Oh, well.
I found
Yes,
I found two stories on CoinDesk today that were interesting. I was going to talk about the terrorists and Bitcoin, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. The other one, it said Bitcoin Foundation hires firm to lobby Congress on cryptocurrencies, and I had mixed feelings about that because I don't know, and I also thought it was interesting how they worded it. Bitcoin Foundation hires firm to lobby Congress, not Bitcoin Foundation hires lobby firm.
Did they just start giving the MasterCard lobbyists more money or what? Like, it seems like
I don't know.
an
Well,
underhanded way of saying
we
that.
got our own people now. There's
says-
3 different groups of lobbyists working in D.C. now. There's the that second group, there's the MasterCard group, and then there's the Bitcoin Foundation group. The interesting thing here is it says cryptocurrencies. Does that mean they're somehow supporting Litecoin now? That's and I remember that the Bitcoin Foundation officially, according to their charter, exists to serve the members of the Bitcoin Foundation. So they're not necessarily lobbying for you or for me or what we might want for Bitcoin. They're lobbying for what Bitcoin Foundation members, mostly businesses, mostly people who can afford to join the organization, what they believe in. So we'll have to see what they do.
Yeah, Brock Pierce was appointed to the board, and then he created an altcoin right away. And I wasn't.
Another big news of the day is that
That
Brock
dollar
Pierce
coin thing? Real coin. Oh, it's like dollars. It's like, oh boy.
Derek, I'm gonna get a
Dollar
screenshot of you.
technology.
He's gonna say, "Oh, it's like dollars."
Derek's the best.
Photoshoppers, oh, it's like dollars, because that's what it is. he's created a virtual basket of dollars, and I suppose that people will pay him until all the dollars are gone, and then they'll send them around, and then for some reason these dollars will be slightly better than the other dollars. That's the idea? I don't understand how you're going to make money.
That's true, Thomas. They will be slightly better than the other dollars because at least they'll send quickly. They won't have as much overhead fees. Like, this is kind of a good idea.
Loved and nurtured and raised right.
Well, in some ways,
farm-free dollars.
This is going to be helpful for like a year. I could see myself even using these to pay like my uncle or whatever who won't get into Bitcoin, but it sends a little faster, and we don't have to use PayPal. You know, there's some value in doing it.
I think it's just another altcoin basket of money. Like,
it's not going to last. It's not a long-term thing, but it seems like a transition point that will help people start to understand Bitcoin, get a little more comfortable with it. I mean, I'm not going to use real coin or whatever the thing is called.
Obviously, if it's real coin, the other coins must be fake, right?
Yeah, they must be fake coins. I don't know if I agree with Patrick Byrne on this, but Patrick Byrne in DC was talking about how increased liquidity in various different markets hasn't really helped a ton over the last 75 years because I don't know if he said they were over liquid or what. And I don't know if I agree with him on that, but I do think that it's an important thing to maybe think about relative to Brock being like, there's going to be so much more liquidity because of my awesome new thing, even though I'm on the Bitcoin Foundation, I made an altcoin.
Yeah, so what's the point about liquidity? Is there not enough liquidity right now?
Well, that's what Patrick was saying.
Is Bitcoin going to create that? I think Blake makes a good point that Brock was elected to the Bitcoin Foundation, and here we've kind of seen again, like, the Bitcoin Foundation is a really great stepping stone. I hope that one day I'll be elected to the Bitcoin Foundation so I can do something entirely different.
We should get elected as a team.
And like, you know, George Carlin said, everyone wants to be a stand-up comedian, but then as soon as you become a stand-up, they're like, hey, do you act? Do you want to be in movies? Do you write sitcoms? And you're like, no, I'm a stand-up comedian. That's what I do. And it's the same thing. Well, we've got Bitcoin. We don't really need altcoins. Like, we're not really sure what you altcoins do. We just want to keep doing this Bitcoin thing.
We're going to do pump and dump coin.
Pump and dump coin, scam coin, all kinds of stuff. Looks like we're talking about Chris Ellis. Chris, we're talking about real coin. We're talking about the Bitcoin Foundation lobbying Congress.
Welcome, Chris.
We're talking about Brock Pierce being on the Bitcoin Foundation. And, of course, we're always talking about paper wallets and Google Authenticator and how they're going to steal your Bitcoins if you leave them in a hot wallet. And a hot wallet is an open wallet.
They'll steal your feather coins.
Well, as I've come to expect, this is the place to be. This is where we're talking about the relevant issues and giving people the real insights they need to hear, and not that bullshit that they get on, you know, mainstream media or in CoinDesk, unless they actually go down to the comments and read what people have to say. So yeah, I've been listening to it a little bit. I was just eating dinner and I was kind of tuning in, seeing what you guys were saying. Found it really interesting you were talking about the memory, the persistent memory inside of printers. I think that's going to be a real problem for these kinds of devices because I produced all my private keys on a laptop that has never had an internet connection and never will. Like, I have no intention. In fact, preferably, I would just get a Raspberry Pi and not even install a network connection.
Internet briefly.
Right. I would prefer. I would prefer to have Armory run on a Raspberry Pi without an internet connection or no network card at all, and then just have the signature produced offline, and then take the signature online by putting it in a USB stick into my laptop.
I know Armory has reduced some of its requirements in the past year. Is it to the point yet, Mr. Chris Ellis, where it could be run on a Raspberry Pi?
Well,
no, I don't think so, because you have to have the whole blockchain.
Well, but the Piper wallet runs some kind of Armory or some version of it, and it does have a USB card reader. So you could put your USB stick in, you could get a paper backup copy, and then you would have 2 copies of your paper wallet. Unfortunately, they're not BIP38 encrypted paper wallets. That's the only real downside here is you can't put a password on them.
How long does the ink last on that paper?
This is we would have to look at it. This is, you know, it's kind of receipt paper. It's called heat transfer ink. So I guess we'd have to Google that. And you could, you know, there's other options, but the USB key would be an additional backup. So.
Yeah, because I thought that most of the receipts that I have from shops and things don't last for more than a couple of years, so it might not be good.
I suppose the first thing I'll do is I'll label one of these and put it on a shelf and check in with it every few weeks, I mean, just as a science experiment. But I think as a temporary paper wallet and as a if you're too lazy to download Tails Linux, burn it to a disk, or in my new instruction videos, I'll be telling you how to burn it to a USB drive for people who don't have disk drives anymore. I know that's a problem. You know, if you're too lazy to burn Tails Linux to a disk, to boot into it, to download the Bitcoin thing, to print out some paper wallets, and you have more than $200 worth of Bitcoin, well, maybe you should spend some of that Bitcoin on this Piper wallet and get some of your Bitcoin onto multiple paper addresses, multiple accounts. And then maybe you can keep those Bitcoin, and when the rest of your Bitcoins are stolen, you'll be like, at least I have these paper Bitcoins that I made. So
I mean, actually, what you can do, I mean, even
But
if you
that's
because the problem is a lot of Mac owners can't run Unix because you can't run Linux on Mac hardware, at least not the new hardware anyway.
really?
No, well, I haven't found a tutorial yet that works. I've tried a few of them. They just literally don't work.
I have older Mac hardware, and it's been booting fine to Tails Linux. So I don't know.
Older
Okay.
Mac hardware is backwards compatible. I don't know what the issue that Chris is talking about, but I know that they moved away from kind of the Unix core that they used to use.
Well, I think they still use FreeBSD as the background of their operating system, but they've removed a lot of the nice Linux features, like they used to have X built in, and they used to have all kinds of easy ways to run Unix programs, and they don't anymore. So
We can maybe hash this out later, Chris, because I want to talk to you more about it then. But that might be kind of
cool.
boring.
So anything, Chris, that you'd say about, what about Brock Pearson, Real Coin? Does that sound successful to you?
No, it sounds like a stupid idea. Fucking
Don't hold
stupid
back.
idea.
No,
So
respect
wait a minute, you're going
yourself,
to take this
friends and
really
mighty Ducks has a
powerful.
lot of money. He's like a very nice guy. I've never really met him personally, but you know, let's give him a chance here, Chris. Come on.
No, I didn't say there was any problem with him. I said it was a fucking stupid idea. Like, you're going to take a really, really powerful new technology and you're going to back it against a failing one that's debt-backed. I mean, you're just getting the worst of both worlds now. There's a reason why the dollar has lost 96% of its value since 1920s, right? There's a reason why. It's because the market doesn't value it very highly. There are too many of these dollars and not enough real assets to really back them. That's the problem. So the only reason why Bitcoin isn't volatile, it's got nothing to do with the strength of the network or the blockchain. It's got everything to do with our lack of ability to understand what the hell this new thing is. It's just a fact of its novelty, and that various people are at different levels of understanding at different stages of their education about this new thing. The thing about the dollar, the only reason the dollar is used as a measure of anything is because everyone has to use it. They have to use it to pay their taxes. So of course it feels stable to you because that's what you're measuring everything against every single day. But once Bitcoin starts getting traded for things like food, things like fuel, things like that, and once it becomes more diversified across a broader range of cultures in different time zones, so that we don't get these wild fluctuations when America wakes up and then another wild fluctuation when China wakes up. The main times that the price fluctuates are as around 6 a.m. GMT for the European time zone, around 1 p.m. GMT for the New York time zone, around 1 a.m. GMT for the Chinese time zone. Because as each new culture emerges, wakes up to the same news that the last one has just finished pricing in, they then have to take a position on the news, and then they have to price it in based on their sentiment, which is very specialized to their locality. So the more people, particularly in areas like South America, for example, regions of Africa, India, and Western China, the more rural regions of China, the harder it will be for any one group of people to control the price. Diversity is what will lead to its strength.
So your prediction is that the price of real coin, which is linked to the price of the dollar, will continue to decline against Bitcoin.
No, it won't. What will happen is that it will stay as steady as long as the person backing it can hold their nerve. So unless I'm misunderstanding something, all you're really doing is you're obscuring the real risk. The fact is the world is a volatile place. That volatility is vital information that you need to understand the state of the changing state of reality.
Yeah, but that's what we talked about earlier. Yeah, about how people need to understand the whole thing with the lion and it coming back down to when you go out, you risk your life and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to railroad you, Chris.
No, that's cool. But am I misunderstanding something about this real coin? It's basically being propped up. They're sending in the dollar value. They're sending in the dollar value on like a ticker into Mastercoin's network.
Well,
is that right?
It's token based. So the master coins have no value, but he's allegedly putting away, again, this goes back to fractional reserves and selling gold certificates, all the different things we've done in the past. But once again, to reinvent the wheel, he's selling dollar for token. So every dollar he puts in a vault, he'll sell you a token. Then you can use these tokens like they're virtual dollars.
And are they limited in any way? Are they limited in any way?
Limited to the number of dollars that he puts into the vault, I believe.
Can I redeem them? Can I get my dollars back if I sell a token? Can I redeem
I believe it's a one-to-one exchange virtual token for dollar held in vault exchange system is how I understand it.
You can get back whatever's left of your dollar after the 33%
yes,
you're on your inflation.
You're not protected against base risk. But I do see, actually, the point that someone was making on Twitter earlier was that this could be a good halfway house to anyone new to crypto, so that you could buy these real coins.
Anyone that's really stupid, could buy these like dollar tokens, and then they could hold them and they'd have no value, and they'd be like, why don't I buy Bitcoin, which goes up in value? I'm just really stupid.
It doesn't protect you against the base risk. The whole demand that's backing Bitcoin is particularly the reason to get away from the dollar. A lot of people that are buying into Bitcoin are buying into the anonymous aspects, or the pseudonymous, as you were saying earlier on quite rightly, the pseudonymous aspects of it. They're trying to get away from the legacy banking system and the old financiers. So
but
I sort of see it
as going down at a very quick and regular pace, and I want that kind of stability.
Yes, exactly. You want the status quo. So it doesn't protect you against the base risk of the dollar actually collapsing, and also it's very centralized because you're relying on this central party to be honest about the location and the security of those physical dollar assets, correct? And then they've also
can only assume they'll have a webcam on them 24/7 so we can see what's going on inside the vault. I hope it's a really good webcam so I can count the bills, from my seat at home. It's going to be very difficult for me.
Yeah, but all you do is puts it on a loop. How do you know that it's live? What's he doing? Running like a... He has
to hire someone to walk back and forth and do improvisational comedy like 24/7.
The only way you'd be able to do it is to run CNN live on a TV in the shot.
I don't believe people CNN.
No. What I mean is, so you
like
can reference it.
Yeah.
No. It's like the equivalent of putting a newspaper in the shot. So what you'd have to do is have a news channel live running in the background that someone could then compare it to. But even then, there's still tricks that you can perform. I mean, magicians do this all the time, where they show you a camera of something and you can get around it. So I'm not.
Ocean's 11. Brock Pierce has a background in movie making. Maybe he's filming this whole thing.
There you go.
He was in the Mighty Ducks, dude. It was my favorite movie growing up. I grew up in Edina, Minnesota, and everybody called the people in Mighty Ducks a cake eater. And I went to Florida, and they still called me a cake eater. It was great.
It's a great movie, Blake. It's a good Disney film. Nothing wrong with Mighty Ducks.
I love that movie.
This is why people should read the comments below every CoinDesk article. If you insist on reading this publication, yes, let's make out the principle of being trustless. Now we have to trust that somebody is actually backing it with dollars because, trust has proven so reliable with national currencies. I mean, this is the thing.
Competing with a trustless system with a trust model. Yeah, it's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. No, quite. I mean, look, I don't have a big axe to grind against CoinDesk because all credit to them for having the comments down below. But I do feel like we're trying to with this real coin, we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist in order to pander to a marketing message.
I think it's a pump and dump. I think it's an attempt to make money, and I don't blame people for trying to make money, but that's why we talked so much about pump and dump coin when we were having fun, to be like, let's make pump coin or pump and dump coin where everybody's on board and understands the transparent nature of we're going to pump it up and then sell it for Bitcoin and have it be the
sell at 12 noon when the price is 50, all together at the same time. Nobody's going to leave before. Nobody's going to cut off at 48 or 45. Not going to happen. 50 or bust.
Definitely. So, like, when Patrick Byrne was in D.C. and he was talking about different stuff, like he talked about Bitcoin derivatives versus dollar derivatives, and why dollar derivatives are so bad, or why China pegging to the price of the dollar is so bad. Is the dollar's a big rubber ruler. It's really kind of a stupid thing to try to measure things with. We're going to quantify and measure human action in this big rubber ruler, and then derivatives don't work. They work like shit, and we actually why does that happen? But what Bitcoin is it's a much better system that isn't a rubber ruler. It's 21 million. It's a brick shithouse of a ruler. So what we have is we have Brock saying, let's make something that's basically pegged to the dollar, just like Chinese currency, because that's working so well. And then what we're going to have is this entire system of value that's going to work off of this rubber ruler when the entire reason that Bitcoin is so great is that it's got the potential to make all these derivatives, markets, futures, financial tools, companies, everything. Like the solid ruler of Bitcoin is going to create an entire economy much bigger than the entire economy than the dollar created could ever have been, because it works correctly on a fundamental and axiomatic level. So when Brock does this, I like Brock. I've met him and talked to him before, but it's like, oh man, I thought that you were deeper into the circle of understanding than this seems to illustrate.
So you're saying that Bitcoin is like a big woody?
It's like a big woody, like a tree cookie size woody.
It's like a really hard, like strong backed currency that just won't budge and won't move. What do you think? What do you think about the hash rate? Has anyone been looking at the hash rate this week?
Mm.
It looks like the next predicted difficulty change in 3 days is only 5%. This will be the lowest it's ever gone, a single increase change since January 2013. I like to monitor these things.
Do you think it's manipulated, like you were talking about the other time? Have you seen a sudden drop yet, or?
Yeah. There are lots of very wild swings that make me question, like multi-petahash swings, 10 petahashes at a time, which either, I don't know quite how Bitcoin Wisdom calculates its graph, so it might just be noise that they're not interpolating correctly. Yeah. But I am kind of concerned, because what would trigger a sudden 10 petahash, that kind of simultaneous action that takes place within a few hours sometimes? Particularly as I noticed that it tends to drop down at just the right time before the next difficulty adjustment, just so that, you know, if you did that, you could get the maximum profit from your mining equipment.
Where do you see the risk and damage from this action? What do you see? What's the worst thing that could happen as a result of action like this, in your opinion?
In my opinion, the weakest part of Bitcoin is its incentive structure that was created, because Satoshi, as I've said it many times, sorry to anyone who watches me and follows me a lot, but the part where Satoshi was most equivocal was on page 4, where he said it ought to reward honest behavior. That honesty had to pay more than fraud, and if you rewarded people with Bitcoins for honest work, it should discourage any dishonest attacking of the network. But of course that relies on people taking a long-term position and not taking stupid short-term positions, which we often see greedy people do. So if someone
is that subjective, or are we not taking in enough scope and cherry picking to make an argument? Are we taking in the full scope of people's wants and needs? I mean, I don't disagree. I agree and disagree with what you're saying, I guess. And my question would be, are we taking the scope of the maximum understanding of people's pragmatic or anti-pragmatic behavior relative to what they're going to do with the code? Do people have short-term interests, like you're saying, or is that something that we can only create if we modify the scope to support our argument?
I think the answer is we don't know until we try, and that's why Satoshi just went ahead and did it. In fact, he had to code the software before he could even write the white paper, because he had to see that it worked first. And so it's a live experiment. It's necessarily a high-stakes game, because we don't learn how to secure things are valuable until those very valuable things are at stake for us. And as a result, the only honest answer is I don't know. We just have to see. But what concerns me is how easy it was for BTC Guild and Sexio, or sorry, I should say Gigahash.io, to rise in prominence so, well, it looked easy to me. I don't know if it was easy on the back end, but it only took Gigahash about a year to get the power off of the BTC Guild. Now, I'm worried if it's that easy, if someone more nefarious couldn't come along in the future and do the same thing, can we trust them to be as, you know, well behaved as the last two?
Well, yeah, and I agree, but they're also pools. They're not individuals.
And Vitalik made the point that you don't even have to worry about number 1. Your real problem is if number 3 and number 4 team up together and they have more power than number 1. I mean, the smaller players building an alliance is more possible than the large player deciding
But why would that concern us? From a risk management perspective, that's anti-pragmatic behavior. We would be just as well off if we all sat here talking about how to manage the risk of us all killing ourselves at the same time.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Blake. It's absolutely absurd. The 51% attack nonsense is absurd. I think it gets people excited because they think 51% like a corporation. Like if Bitcoin was a corporation and we took it over, we'd have 51%. We'd be awesome. But the reality is we'd have 51% for like 10 minutes. We'd double spend a couple of times. We'd build our own blockchain. Everyone would notice. They'd build their own blockchain. They'd IP ban us. They'd find out where we are. There'd be all kinds of internet bad things that would happen when you do
How would they find you based on your IP address? You don't record IP addresses on the blockchain. And also, you don't know what the 12% of unknown.
Well, you have a
hash rate
relay
is.
address. You have an address that's relayed, so you can go back through and try to figure out the general area. I mean, I agree, it's not as completely easy as Thomas is saying, but there is. I mean, that's basically what would happen. I mean,
if you have 51% of the network, how are you going to hide that?
And well, because you just don't put it all in one pool. The people that, if you run the pool, you control the activities of the hash. Because what I'm arguing is there's a possibility that the hash rate that GigaHash is publishing to the network is not necessarily all their hash rate. They could be putting that through a different pool or putting it as individual nodes. The fact is you just don't know. We're also relying on
but
the
this is
assumption.
practical impossibility that we're talking about. It's not literally impossible, but it is practically impossible because it's anti-pragmatic.
But we don't know that, for example, in the future, someone could also gain the same dominance and have a vested interest in just taking Bitcoin down. They don't care about getting rich. They're just doing this.
Well, we have to ask what dominance is to actually measure that risk, though. And what is dominance? It's power, it's value, it's different things that really most of those are mitigated by that same value coming back from the chain, which brings us back to anti-pragmatism.
But what do you mean by anti-pragmatism?
Well, so pragmatism would be working in your own self-interest, working in a psychological and balanced understanding of reality so that you go and do things that help and serve you, that act in your best interest. So killing yourself would be very, very anti-pragmatic unless you were really, really, really depressed, but there would be certain signs that would show that. Relative to people attacking the blockchain in almost every single way that we can imagine, it would be anti-pragmatic unless you were the collective or a nation state, which really doesn't exist. It's a constituency or it's a group of people. So when we try to really quantify what group would pose the biggest risk, individuals have no reason to attack it, and then groups may have a reason, but that will be undermined by the individuals in that group being like, well, I own some of this too. So it would be very, very difficult to attack the system in that way.
So you could see a situation, let's say a contingent of the Chinese government decides that they've got enough fabs in China to be able to secretly amass lots of hash rate. And what you're saying is they could try and attack the network. But what if someone on this team of people decides that actually they'd rather keep the Bitcoins? And so then they actually say, well, actually, I'm going to use this to mine the honest blockchain. Because if they didn't care about the money no object, all they wanted they'd seen how easy it was for BTC Guild and GigaHash to amass that much dominance. And let's say they just want to spam the network. Let's say they just want to troll it, right? Because there are anti-spamming code in the software, like it publishes, it rebroadcasts the double spending, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
So one attack vector could just be to keep publishing double spends and actually spam the network with double spending data, right? So you could try that, and all you're trying to do here is create a nuisance. You're not necessarily trying to like bring the whole thing grinding to a halt or double spend so you can get a new Lamborghini. What you're trying to do is jam up them. You're trying to make sure that people, the regular members of the public who perhaps aren't so clued up, are just finding this massively inconvenient. And so then they say, oh, well, I'm just going to go back to using my dollars and my pounds.
Well, exactly, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that have a lot of money invested in Bitcoin and will go through and actually, there are some people, I don't want to include myself or not include myself in any group, that would go and actually pay additional teams of computer and information scientists to support and implement BIPs and Bitcoin improvement plans to secure the amount of money they already have in Bitcoin.
It's really an issue of size, and that's why it's so strange to look at Bitcoin now versus Bitcoin last year versus Bitcoin, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. When Bitcoin started out, it seemed kind of silly because it was so small. No one will be able to use this, no one will want this. But then, as I looked at it later, it had gotten so big, these companies were in on the side, all these people were in, this whole community was in, all these people were a part of it. It's the size that makes it impossible for them to flip over. Yes, okay. The altcoins are going to be 51% attacked because they're new. The size of Bitcoin, the amount of money involved in the ASIC chips, in the mining, in the creating companies about it, in the creating the Bitcoin Foundation and paying the developers, which apparently needs to happen more. All of these things are going to protect Bitcoin. That's my prediction.
What I was talking about is not the traditional 51% that we're all really discussing. It's what Chris brought it up before, and then I took a look at the charts too, and I was wondering myself, is that before a difficulty change comes up?
Yeah, shorting the hash rate.
Exactly. They either one big pool does it, or a few data centers call each other on these really big operations, and they're like, okay guys, let's shut down around this time, and then we'll short the of course, I mean, I guess that's pragmatic because I'll be able to use my equipment for a longer amount of time.
Exactly.
The question is,
they're making money. We understand what they're doing.
That's okay. I understand that. The question is that, yeah, what is the? I still haven't been able. I haven't spent really any time, discussing it with other people that much. But what is the danger in that? I mean, if you have like the hash rate, one day or 1 hour going down by, I don't know, 5 or 10%. I have to look at the chart if that's really going down by 5 or 10% or not in the future. If it could, what if it was more volatile? What if it went down?
Two things can happen. Either it's going to bring us before 2140 with the 21 million production, or they're going to trickle out more slowly towards the end. We have like till 2140 to fix this problem, and it's not a very big problem. I don't see it as a risk at all.
It is a little bit, because it actually leaves you with something called a difficulty trap. I'm just trying to look for the chart now. So basically, the number of the amount of time until a confirmation slows down when you're stuck at a high difficulty. So here you see the chart that shows how long the transactions take, and obviously the amount of time for a transaction when the hash rate goes up relative to the recent difficulty adjustment goes down quite a lot. But you
transaction time versus what? The legacy system of 72 hours?
Oh no, absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. What I'm saying is that we saw it with Feathercoin, we've seen it with other coins as well, is that if you get wild fluctuations in the hash rate, and in particular with Bitcoin, where you're waiting statistically every 10 to 14 days for a difficulty adjustment, what can happen is people's transactions get stuck for a long time during a period where, like in this period we've got here, where we had quite a slowdown here, in the hash rate for quite an amount of time, such that we're actually only looking at a 6% increase next time.
And I think the other problem that Chris brought up is that this affects the mining contract market. That they're basically pre-selling Bitcoin hash rate now. So if they're acting this way with the hash market, if they can control it at that level, they can affect the Bitcoin hash rate market of pre-selling that, so they can make money off that, so they can manipulate it. So, but again, it makes perfect pragmatic sense why they would do that. They're doing that to make money, and we're going to track them with the blockchain, and we're going to find out about it, and there's going to be consequences, is how
exactly. That's the bit I'm looking forward to, and Blake, you said this as well. It's how we respond to these. The fact that we're even having this conversation is a testament to the strength of Bitcoin's community. The fact that we're vigilant, the fact that we're watching this stuff, because the truth is we can't predict the future. It's all very well we can come in with that game theory.
I'm actually from the future, so speak for yourself, man.
Yeah, exactly. the
it's all very well like.
Past. You can look at the past. You can look at the early stock markets. Every single scam that was run on the early stock markets will be converted into a Bitcoin scam.
Yep.
So we're just going to find out. We're learning about new old scams right now is what we're really learning.
The biggest Bitcoin scam, the thing that everyone's going to be like, why didn't I know this the first time I heard it, is going to be, I have coins in cold storage. I'm 1-to-1. I have cold storage. Don't worry. All this stuff is backed up by coins and cold storage. Be wary when people tell you stuff like that. That's going to be one of the biggest Bitcoin scams, is people saying, I'm not over leveraged. I've got coins that are backed up and kept in storage. And I've actually done business with people like that have told me that they had coins in storage and were 1-to-1 and then didn't, and I demanded my money back, and I'm pretty persuasive, so I got it, but then they were really in a bad situation. So be wary of people that say, oh yeah, I've got coins in cold storage. That's a dangerous statement to come out of somebody's mouth that they want to convince you about. So be very wary about that. I think that'll be one of the biggest.
I think the key thing to come out of this conversation here is that we have to stay vigilant, and we can't take too many things for granted, because we don't know. The goal here is to be decentralized. So any form of centralizing aspects that we're noticing, I think, should give us some causes for concern.
Yeah, and the Byzantine general problem, I mean, you can't just send people through the battlefield with trust and be like, there's going to be a whole bunch of trust going on here. Trust is kryptonite to a secure system.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're joined live on the phone by Tatiana Moroz, who's in Las Vegas. Woo!
Hello.
Oh.
Hey,
what's up, Tatiana?
How's it going?
Hi.
So what are you doing in
Wonderful.
Vegas? Are you doing a concert? What's going on?
I may have a secret concert on Saturday, but I don't know about that yet. But I'm just here hanging out, talking about Bitcoin. I don't know if you guys know, I just joined Bitcoin Magazine, so I'm kind of educating the Freedom Fest crowd on Bitcoin and hopefully getting them to maybe accept it and check it out.
Are any of the vendors selling anything in Bitcoin at the Freedom Fest?
I have a friend who works or who owns Amagi Metal, and they take Bitcoin for silver and gold. But I haven't gone down to the vendor tables yet because I've been working since 7 in the morning, so I could enjoy the afternoon with all my with all the cool guests that are coming here.
Well, very cool. Be sure to check that out. Maybe get a small amount of silver. I know Derek and I were just at PorkFest, and we used the Sons of Liberty booth to buy some divisible silver, and it comes in little small amounts, even like $5. You could get a little piece of silver. So.
Yeah, somebody just mentioned them to me. I know it's the Cop Block guys that own that, right?
Yep, I got a copy of Derek's
Keys.
movie there too. It's a good deal. A lot of good stuff.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to go on their website. But I mean, I know them. I got a Cop Block shirt when I was in PorkFest, actually.
Very cool. And how was your PorkFest experience?
It was too short, but wonderful when I was there. I had to leave for the Libertarian Party National Convention on Thursday, which is pretty much when everybody gets there, but it was still really great. Unfortunately, you and we didn't get a chance to hang out.
I know. I went all the way to New Hampshire to hang out with you, and then you weren't even there. You just moved too quickly.
That's totally a good point. Actually, I'm going to be in San Francisco and Palo Alto. I'm going to be playing a few different meetups, I think 3 of them. So there's going to be Palo Alto, San Fran, and the Silicon Valley one. So I'll be up there in San Francisco, so we should hopefully be able to hang then.
Very cool. That sounds good. I'll have to wear my hat and my goggles just like I did last night at the Bitcoin Beauties art show. I don't know if you've heard about this, but yeah, Sarah Blinko has this group called Bitcoin Beauties, and she had about 10 women, about 6 of them were artists, and they all showed their art and sold their art for Bitcoin yesterday in Sunnyvale.
Sarah B's my best bud. She's awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I know Sarah. That's wonderful.
Yep. So we're just doing that last night and trying to get more people into Bitcoin wherever we can, whatever we can do, right?
Absolutely. I think, the nice thing about when you involve like culture into Bitcoin is I think that it's a really great way to bridge with people that aren't necessarily techies, because there is a creative aspect to Bitcoin, and the possibilities, especially with the 2.0 stuff, are boundless. So, it'll be interesting to see how the music community embraces it and how other artists take advantage of the technology.
I totally agree. I actually kind of think of myself as somebody that was all the way as far left brain as they could possibly be with science and math and stuff, and then I'm now trying to get as far right brain as I can be, and I actually kind of feel like some of my role in the community is to try to bring a right brain perspective to this new technology to let people understand the creative potential that it can unleash for the individual. So I totally agree with that shtick. I love it.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I hope that we'll be able to do more different kinds of events, stuff like that. I know Bitcoin Magazine is looking to kind of do some fun stuff too, so I'm really excited to be working with those guys, and we were just on the phone this morning. We're going to do a back to school issue, which I think is going to be really fun, and it'll give us a chance to feature how schools are taking advantage of Bitcoin. So there's a lot of different ways we could do it, and we'll have a cover contest so students can design a cover of that magazine issue.
Sounds
Congratulations. They're so lucky to have you.
Oh, I'm so lucky to have them. I keep saying, I know I just started last Wednesday, but I keep saying this is the best job I've ever had. There's so much respect among the team. I'm able to be as creative as I want to be. And even though I'm doing, sales and stuff like that, I mean, I have an amazing product to sell that people are interested in. So I don't really look at that as a burden. I look at my ability to contribute creatively as an advantage to helping me, just get more people exposure for their companies. There's a lot of great people out there working on stuff, and we're here to help educate the public about it too.
Very cool. Thank you, Tatiana. And thank you for doing what you're doing with Bitcoin Magazine. It sounds very cool. But
very fun, yeah. And then, we're still doing Tatiana Coin, so that's kind of going strong, but I got to say, I took a little break from updating because I was out of touch with PorkFest, and now it's like 14-hour days. But I just wrote a blog on the plane last night, so I'll be posting that soon, and people can keep getting their coin.
Excellent. Keep the updates going, and I know we have Let's Talk Bitcoin coin is coming out soon, or it's been released. So a lot of these artist coins are coming out.
Yes, absolutely. And I really support Adam's efforts. I think that it'll be really interesting to see how LTV Coin does. And so far, I think everybody's been really a big fan of it. And it's a very exciting project. Adam was instrumental in getting Tatiana Coin off the ground. And the whole team, Lisa Chang and Amos at Coin Powers and the Counterparty team. I actually was hanging out with some of the Counterparty guys when I was in New York. I saw Charlie Shrem and a bunch of people. We went and saw Andreas Antonopoulos speak at the Bitcoin Center, so it was really cool to kind of just hang out in person with some of the people responsible for Tatiana Coin, as far as the Counterparty folks go, you know?
Very cool. And I'm told you're going to go have lunch with Jeffrey Tucker, who told us at the Bitcoin convention that gold has two problems. It's heavy, and it takes up space.
That's right. He's got it. He's got his finger on it. I mean, people should have a diverse, you know, I guess financial portfolio, but I think that, you know, Bitcoin at the end may end up saving the day.
Very cool. We'll let you get back to having fun in Las Vegas, but thank you very much for joining us, Tatiana.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
Always
Bye-bye.
a pleasure, Tatiana.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right, Tatiana from Tatiana Coin joining us. Breaking up the security talk with a little bit of fun, huh? You guys remember fun?
I don't remember fun, but I do
Before
remember
security, we used to have fun. We used to talk about Bitcoin and art, pretty girls, all kinds of things that are happening. Derek J., do you have any luck at the DMV? I know I've been watching your behind-the-scenes channel, and there's been an epic quest to get the licenses for your car. Any luck on that?
No, they still don't take Bitcoin. But no, I've been. I was taking a step back while everyone was talking security because I was really out of my element. But it was really enjoyable to hear all that. I took some notes and have some questions for you guys about some of the terms you were using, and I definitely will get to that in a second. But I want to show you my driver's license since Tom brought it up. This is really what the state gives you if you get a driver's license in New Hampshire. So first, it's a piece of paper.
Is it a black and white photocopy?
It is a black and white piece of paper that is not special in any way, and they will be sending me, they say, a real plastic one in 60 days. And you can see this is 1 week of being, you know, in my pocket. I've changed pants each day, so it's gotten some wear. I think it's going to be completely gone by the time 60 days rolls around. So I used this at a bar recently. I tried to get into a club. They turned me away. They were like, oh, no. Like, this is not, you know, they don't think it's even real. So
It's a photocopied piece of paper. What are you trying to do getting in here?
I know. It was, so it's horribly embarrassing, and that's the DMV quest. So no, I did get my license, and now I thought, great, I can go and get that car. You saw the thank you letter from the bank or whatever, and now I've bought this car. This is a true story, and the dealership guy looks at me and he's like, you know, all right. I was like, can I get some plates to take it away? He's like, well, you didn't buy it through the dealership. You bought it through a private sale, so I can't give you plates. I'm not allowed. You know, sorry. And so it's sitting on a dealership lot without plates, undrivable. So I waited a month, paid about $1,000 to the state for permission to drive in New Hampshire. Now I have the permission to drive, but not that car. That car can't be driven. So no one can drive it. It can't even go to a place to be inspected legally. Like, it needs to be inspected by the state. That's the reason it can't get plates. So anyway, it's a big nightmare involving permission from the government. One of the big reasons I love Bitcoin is because it involves no permission from the government. You know, and while you were all chatting, I read an article on CoinDesk about the Polish finance ministry saying that Bitcoin can be used as a financial instrument. And that's okay, neither here nor there, but a thought occurred to me that hadn't before about how the governments, when they say, oh, okay, yeah, it can be used as a financial instrument, we understand Bitcoin. Of course they don't. You know, I don't fully understand Bitcoin. I'm learning all these things from you.
I don't fully understand it.
And they are saying that they are the authorities. So first they took a step back. They were saying, like, well, we don't know. We're not going to let people use it because we don't know if it's safe or whatever. People might get hurt when we're your protectors. But now they're saying, like, all right, Bitcoin's been around for a while. We understand it, and it can be used as a financial instrument. But what they don't realize is that they don't even know how Bitcoin would comply with any of their rules. Like, you know, how do you know if I sent you Bitcoin, this second, at what value that was exchanged at for the dollars, or so that the records that can be normally kept and that they're expecting to be kept just won't work with Bitcoin. And I think
it sounds like you're talking about contraception there, Derek. When is the baby a fetus? When does the sperm enter the cell? Like, we're talking with Bitcoin. If the transaction takes longer and the price crashes while I'm sending my money around, that affects the price, right?
Or where did the transaction take place? For example, if I'm sending my Bitcoin from New Hampshire to China, then where exactly did that transaction take place? What sort of taxes and what sort of rules apply? It's a joke that they're saying, oh no, Bitcoin fits right in. It's just one of those financial instruments. No big deal. It's not like
really revolutionary. You're in China when you were saying that.
Yeah.
As long as, and China needs to get their cut too. If it goes through their country, we're going to have no problem regulating this. There's no way that the existing global natural companies are going to compete with that. There's no way.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting, but more back to what you guys were talking about with security, because this is like a security-themed episode, and I think it's really important. It's probably a little bit ahead of its time, but people will be watching this, looking back and saying, oh damn, I wish I locked up that or did two-factor authentication or whatever, or looked into this. Tell me more, Blake, something that I hadn't heard about really before, but I've seen on blockchain. You can look up IP through Relay. Like, what is that? Like, I've seen you can show where a transaction sort of takes place. Is that done through a record that's kept on the Bitcoin network about someone's IP address?
Well, there's no IP addresses stored in the Bitcoin network at all, ever. So what that would be is if you're in various sites that have recorded information along with what Bitcoin does, they could have recorded an IP and associated it. And the IP that they're recording is the relay IP. So if you do a trace route between two different people, so let's say you bring up a command window and you type in trace RT space some IP or web address, and it'll hop to all the various different nodes that it has to get there. Whatever was the closest node to that place that reported is going to be the node recorded. So there's various different ways that you can use Bitcoin to make it so that that node is as far away from you as possible when it gets reported.
Like using Tor.
Using Tor, using the proxy. I mean, there's several different things you can do. You can have a wide area network or a VPN. You can there's various ways to get that away from you, but like when Tom was saying they'll ban your IP or whatever, they can get a good idea for most users, but there's enough users that use proxies and stuff that it's not exactly the most useful thing for speculation that ever existed.
So I also wanted. Sorry.
I believe that's okay. I believe the way that the blockchain.info does it is they take the IP address from the debug log in most people's Satoshi clients. So when you log on to the Bitcoin network, obviously you have to petition to the network to receive the latest block since you've been gone. And the only way you can do that is with IP address. You then record your IP address in the debug, and I believe what blockchain.info does is it says, okay, did you receive the latest block sooner than everyone else? If yes, what's your IP address? What's your general location? And they assume that that miner must have been close to you because you were one of the first to receive it.
Interesting. Okay, wow.
And even right here, Derek, with a very layman's understanding of traceroute, which I probably shouldn't be showing people, but I can see my packets going through servers called Seattle.level3.net, and then they go through servers called Sacramento.level3.net. So even just looking at this, I was tracing the route to Yahoo.com. I could pretty much tell where I am already just because of the names of these servers, which is a completely layman's type examination of this data. So.
Wow. Okay, I didn't realize that all of this, I guess you would call it metadata, right, is being recorded?
Well, yeah, Chris had a much better explanation than I did of exactly where the data is coming from, at least in one situation, and then when we get that data, whether it's an IP, it's probably going to be translated into a URL, so it'd be an IP, and then the trace route is basically what it would kind of look like to try to go back and figure out where different IPs are located physically.
I also really... Oh, sorry, Chris. Go for it.
That's okay. This is something that the CIA do with Tor. So what I just described with blockchain.info, BitPay do as well. They flood the network with nodes, and they put them on cloud storage all over the world so that they can listen in on the network. What the CIA and the NSA do with Tor is they put a lot of exit nodes on the Tor network so that they can listen in on the packets, and then they persist all of that data over time so that later on, if they want to try and trace something that happened, they can rerun what they witnessed. Now, they're only going to get fragments, just like blockchain.info only gets a rough estimation of location, but it's sometimes enough to give them a lead on an inquiry that they might have.
Oh, wow.
So there's always this gradient of security and anonymity that people need to be aware of. It is not an on and off system.
Yeah.
You also described what a 51% attack would look like, and I found that very interesting. I wanted to get a thermometer test of each of the guests. Yes or no, are you concerned about a 51% attack?
I'm concerned about complacency. I'm concerned about us not being vigilant and taking our eye off the ball and saying, oh no, it's perfectly secure, we got this all done, you know. I think there should be people that constantly monitor and do get paranoid and do worry about possibilities.
Thomas seems not worried.
Not worried at all. I've talked to Andreas about it. He doesn't seem worried. He's smarter than me, so I'm going to work on that system right there.
Okay, that's the most dangerous thing. That right there is the most dangerous
thing. Well, I'm a combination of their answers, so here, I'm a combination of their answers. I feel like Thomas, but I understand that if I tell people that I feel like Thomas, that people will become complacent, and then what Chris is saying is going to become a real issue. So I'm a combination of their two views. I don't lose any sleep over it at all, but I also tell people that it's something that it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure it doesn't happen.
Your logical fallacy, Thomas, is appeal to authority. You said that because an authority thinks something, it must therefore be true.
Well, I've also looked at what he said, and it seems true to me. It doesn't seem like an issue for Bitcoin. It's an issue for altcoins.
Andreas,
it was an issue for Bitcoin when Bitcoin was smaller because a government or a PayPal could theoretically buy enough of the network for a low enough cost that it would be worth it to try to torpedo the network with that money. The problem is now there's so much cost put into it, there's only a couple of players, US, China, that have the money to buy 51% of the network. Then the question is, why would they waste 51% of the network doing that?
So everybody knows all this, but what we have to say is that that's not a bright line fallacy. Andreas Antonopoulos is an expert. He was in math-based security and security before Bitcoin came out, so appealing to his authority is not necessarily fallacy. There are times when it's fallacious to do that, but it's not a bright line fallacy.
Oh.
If he was here, Andreas was here, he'd say, okay, you should trust me up until a point, but you should also go away and do your own research as well.
Yep.
I mean, how many people actually read the Bitcoin code? I mean, how many? I can try and pull up some code right here. If my
who likes reading Python?
Well, no, just read the comments. I mean, so I'm pulling up the bit that deals with the replaying of the double spending, because that's what we were talking earlier, and I was just going back through it. And one of the things that the developers brought up was just blindly replaying every single double spend across the entire network gives the attackers a denial of service attack vector in its own right. And this is also, by the way, the same philosophy and decision-making process that they went through when relaying orphan blocks. So one of the known problems with Bitcoin is that if you orphan a block, the only time that ever gets recorded is with the local node that witnessed it, the local miner that witnessed it. Now, it does get stored in the debug log of that miner, but the network as a whole doesn't record them. Now, what if someone is trying to persistently accumulate blocks in the background without broadcasting them to the network? Because that's another attack vector you can do. What that means is you slowly amass hash rate in the background. You're mining blocks, but you're not telling anyone that you've mined them. And then what you do is you spring it on the network all in one go, like you'll spring 6 blocks in a row. And there have been times in the past where BTC Guild were mining 6 successive blocks in a row, which means that they could have lied about a transaction during that whole time if they'd wanted to, and if they could have anticipated that that was likely to happen. Now, of course, they didn't, and this is all speculation. But there are attack vectors, and the biggest problem we've got is if we
But this is like talking about pediatric leukemia in a 35-year-old man.
I don't know. I'm not sure that it is.
We're not
recording enough information about the different attack vectors. If the orphan block is only being kept with that local miner, we're not collecting enough data to learn about the possible attack vectors, are we?
Well, we're not collecting enough data, but we have to look at it from a risk management perspective and say, okay, what is the risk of this happening with the amount of mining and hashing power that exists now, and the fact that different pools, people are going to want regular payouts and things like this. A group that has enough centralized, cohesive, decisive power to stack up 6 blocks now is exponentially more difficult than it was in the past. And I agree with what you're saying, but I think that we're worried about a very young man's problem and an older man right now.
Mm. I mean, well, do you think that miners are going to, how do you think a lot of miners are going to feel when they realize that mining is a zero-sum game? Because most of the miners that I hear talking and I see on the forums don't seem to understand that if they'd put their same amount of capital when they bought the miner into just buying Bitcoins when it was like $100, they would be much better off by now. And that actually mining is designed to be a zero-sum game. I mean, do you fear a lot of people that only got into it for the money might just go, well, screw this, I'm not making what I wanted?
Lots of people jump out, but especially when people identified the leap from FPGA or field programmable gate arrays to ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits, a lot of people realized a lot of capital, realized that they were going to have to compete with computer scientists there forward, so when they stopped paying for themselves relative to power, they pulled their capital out and they left the game. People that think that mining is unidirectional, it's not really going to be unidirectional. Right now we have a giant price correction after the malfeasance of bot trading and the token system of Mt. Gox and a whole bunch of other stipulations that are really massive that I don't think will continue to be able to have the impact on Bitcoin that they have in the past. That being said, I think that there's a big disconnect between the hash rate and the value of Bitcoin, and I think that if the past is any indicator of the future, that Bitcoin's price and mining power will reestablish after long enough a closer relationship that will be better to have people look at relative to mining and investing in mining, because right now there's a giant correction in the price, and then people just assume that mining was going to be, okay, let's assume a flat rate of return, let's assume that competition is going to go up so my income will go down, let's assume that the value of Bitcoin will go up because it's produced at a deflationary rate of pace, and then that was upset by the government basically deep dicking the system.
Well, yeah, you've always got to watch out for black swans. Look at what happened with the altcoins. The altcoins came out because a whole bunch of GPU miners didn't ROI on their graphics cards. And so then they needed to create more bubbles in order to generate a return. Yeah, that's why they had to go with script. And that's what TrueBricks, FairBricks, and Litecoin were all about in those early days, was just about getting ROI. Now what
remember that they're pump and dumps, so they're a giant root system on the giant redwood of the Bitcoin blockchain. These are all I drink your milkshake style. Daniel Day-Lewis, you know, all the penny stock fans.
I'm finished.
But now what we have are the Wall Street, you know, and the vulture capitalists coming into the game, and these people won't play a game unless they can cheat. So the one thing I think they're trying to do.
That's why we got to make pump and dump coins so they can come in and cheat and help everybody while they think they're cheating.
Or dollar coin, like we've already seen today, which doesn't even solve, you know, a problem. It just
it's a real coin, I think. Real coin.
Yeah, but it's effectively like it's dollar coin. It's like they're trying to give you the best of both worlds. What I'm concerned about is that these big actors simply care about one thing and one thing actor. They want to get this amount of capital and turn it into this amount of capital. They don't care how they get there, who they have to screw over in order to get there. That's all they really care about. You're really solving their problem.
Well,
what they're doing is they're
What I would hope is that a huge investor would come in and buy a lot of Bitcoin and then hold a lot of Bitcoin, figure out how to do it securely, make sure it's secure, paper offline, then they'd be like, okay, well I have a whole bunch of more money, let me use that to run a whole bunch of extra nodes or Qt clients or miners and all that stuff just to basically invest some of my money in the infrastructure even if it's at a loss. And I'm not going to say that I did that, but if I had the money to do it, that's what I would have done. And I think that hopefully there's enough people that have done that, and I think that there probably are, that the system is a little bit more robust than just you know, children mining at home and then giant venture capitalists trying to swing it. There is some kind of a medium of stability, I think, in this community.
So that answer your question, Derek?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes. Yeah, it more than answers my question, and I don't think I've ever heard such a thorough discussion of the topic, so I really enjoyed that and wanted to just thank you guys for your expertise.
Chris is a genius. He's one of the most brilliant people I've ever talked to, so I'm always honored to be able to speak with him.
You're a genius too, Blake.
I like that you guys both went, as close to the root as you could, and right down to Chris, you screen sharing the code, the Bitcoin code itself, right here on this episode.
More people need to do that.
Another first, ladies and gentlemen. Another first.
We're busting all the cherries.
You had always talked about the way the comments inside the Bitcoin code were sort of the nectar of the fruit, and I have to be honest and say that I never went so far as to look at the code, but just now I will. Seeing those comments in there, I want to read all of them. I assumed that it was going to be mostly unreadable, but that's totally worth reading. Just the comments.
Well, there's actually a really famous saying by Marshall McLuhan. He said, "We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us." And one of the problems I have at the moment is that we've got a very small number of people. I predict, I've said it before, maybe less than 1,000 people on the planet that know how to start and sustain a cryptocurrency. Most of those, their legal identities are unknown to us. And I think it's vitally important that if you don't already, please subscribe to the Bitcoin developers mailing list. You can just Google that. If not, you can also see the archives. You can go through the comments. I mean, treat it like a game, right? Just read almost like an adventure novel, and just look at some of the decisions that went into making those variables and those if statements that they use. It's very important because this is going to shape.
Yeah, it's the most important information in history. I think it's incontrovertible. It's the most important information in history, and a lot of people, get it on a general macro level that Bitcoin is important, but like really, really take it personally and go check.
Well, and while we're talking about the writings of Satoshi Nakamoto, I thought this might be a good time for a plug. A guy gave me his book at the Bitcoin convention in DC. This is called The Book of Satoshi: The Collected Writings of Bitcoin Creator Satoshi Nakamoto by Phil Champagne. Very cool. So you guys can check this out. It's really readable. It's all of here's one.
I'm changing my last name to Champagne.
Champagne. There's one here. It said, Ray flood attack 0.00001 Bitcoin, and it's him and Gavin talking about how to distinguish between a legitimate micro-payment processing IP and a spammy, I want to make Bitcoin use so much bandwidth, nobody is willing to run it anymore. So that's totally readable. I understand exactly what they're talking about. So it is available. You can learn more about what Satoshi was thinking. And I think books like this, books that are taking this book, making it smaller, re-examining it, this kind of examination of Satoshi's writings and what he was actually trying to do with Bitcoin are going to become more and more popular, more and more interesting in the next few years.
I cried after I read the white paper. I really did, and partially during it. It's that sounds really stupid and really nerdy, but honestly, it was I remember looking at my screen and as I was trying to read the text at the bottom, my vision was out of focus because there were tears in my eyes. And at this point, I was working at a Fortune 25 financial institution as a math-based security project manager, so I had a lot more kind of base ready for it to slam down on and really, really make an impact. But it rustled my jimmies, man.
Were you in your office at work, Blake?
Yep, a business analyst at the Fortune 25 financial institution that I was working at told me that he found a new technology that would solve all of our financial woes. And I was like, oh, eGold, I know about that. That's not going to work out. And he's like, no, it's this data system. And I was like, well, data's copyable. It won't work. So like many people, the first thing I said about Bitcoin is that it'll never work. I'm an information scientist. Give me the paper. I'll vet through it and tell you why it's not tenable. And then, I read through it and stuff, and he knew I was going to need a minute after I was reading it for a while, so he walked away and let me think about it. So
wow. So where were you when you read the Satoshi white paper? We should have a call in on that. That should be the question.
Oh yeah, Chris just said the word call in, and I should remind the listeners that they can call in at Bitcoin Talk Show on Skype or at 708-23-COINS. There's also a number that Thomas has, right?
Oh yeah, but yeah, any number is fine. And I just got a tweet on Twitter from Pierre Rebel, and what he says is he didn't know the book was existing, and he's now going to buy it, and he wanted something just like this, where it went, the Book of Satoshi, where you can check out Satoshi's writing. And if you're going to buy everything I put on the screen, you should buy Derek J's. Because
You should buy it, even if you can't
copy
read them.
right here. So if you're just buying random things now. So.
Yeah, or a lovely hat like you've got there.
We've got the Bitcoin Bomber beanie right here from Bitcoin Not Bombs. And when
I
it
have
gets
that T-shirt.
this summer, you know.
If you want to be like
Blake's wearing a Bitcoin Not Bombs T-shirt right now. Can't you tell?
it's really good. I look really handsome in it.
It's more radio humor. That's all he's wearing. Oh.
Uh-oh.
Do you remember where you were? So since you brought it up, Chris, we might as well do it now. We don't have to wait for this is live. What was your first time reading the Satoshi white paper? Where were you?
It was in the middle of the night. I tend to stay up quite late, and I have a device that this laptop's on right now that tilts upwards so that I can lay back in bed and I can read. So that's usually when I do most of my reading, in the middle of the night. And I think it was February or March 2013, so I got very late into it. I'm really ashamed to say that I did know about Bitcoin for quite a while before that, because I had a friend of mine who would keep talking about it. And I thought it was amazing. And I already grokked it, like when he told me about it. I kind of got it, but then I actually sat down and laid down rather and read it, and it was pretty powerful. And I spent a lot of time on Reddit trying, because I had all kinds of questions, I had all kinds of criticisms and things like, oh, this completely disrupts, what I thought I knew. And so I just had to really humble down, and so I spent a lot of time on the Bitcoin Talk forum and just reading through, because I found other people had the same criticisms when they first read it. And so I really did just have to take a deep breath and go, okay, well, what is this thing? And of course, I tried to mine it straight away, like I tried to, and then I realized that was futile. But I was like it was a little bit like a Copernican revolution for me. It was like, Copernicus starts off his magnus opus with once everybody does this thought experiment with me, everyone will see the same truth that I saw. Namely that if you put yourself on the sun and you ask the question, is the sun going around the earth or is the earth going around the sun? He said you'd say the same thing wherever you are in the universe, because you've got the geocentric position. My eyes look outwards from my head, and therefore, if you do this thought experiment with me, you will agree with me. And that was exactly the same way I felt about Bitcoin, that when you do this thought experiment, you understand it.
The death of relativity, the absolute concept of beauty.
Yeah, it was a quite big moment for me as well.
Words are paltry things.
Do you remember yours, Thomas? When you read the?
Like to talk about. I haven't read it because it would make me feel bad. I mean, I learned about Bitcoin on Slashdot when the announcement came out. I learned about it again when the second announcement came out. I told my roommate I thought it was cool. He didn't think it was cool. I watched a video of someone demonstrating sending numbers back and forth between two things, and I was like, that's really cool, but that's like video game currency. Unless you can convince like everyone in the world to use that, it's never going to work, right? So I put it in the back of my mind and just drifted back there. And I thought about buying. I thought about buying then, and I didn't buy any. I thought about buying when it was at 13, when it was at 20, when it was at 30, and I was like, oh, I should get some, but I already missed it. Is the way I felt, that I'd already missed it, and so I didn't buy any, so I don't have any. And then it went to 250, and I was like, oh, I missed the boat. It's over. I totally missed it. And then a couple days later, it went down to like 75 to 100. So I got a couple, but still, then you're freaking out because this thing that was 250 is now 75. But in my mind, I was like, oh, it's worth 250. I'll hold a couple. But so no, not a lot of money, and I knew about it the whole time because I know what's going on the internet, and I thought it was really cool. But until you actually get some, and I'm talking, start smaller. I was trying to invest like $1,000, and that was too much. If I had started with 100, I would have been able to put that in. If I had started with $10, I could have put that in. It's about getting the first dollar into Bitcoin and starting to send it around and to test with it so that you can really trust it. Because like Blake said, they tell you, oh, I'm going to give you a digital item that's uncopyable, and just your heart says no. You're like, that's not going to happen. Like, you're really smart and really clever, and I love you, Internet, but you're not going to give me a digital item that's uncopyable. Like, somebody's going to break that, Like, and still, somebody could break that. We don't know. Like, right now, it's been good so far, but we're not out yet.
Listening, and this is not a sponsor, but I have used ExpressCoin.com recently, and I used to use them as cash into coins .com, and they were terrific the whole time. They're always great. Customer service is awesome. And if you haven't yet gotten into Bitcoin, or you're looking for an easy way to do it with cash, expresscoin.com is an excellent place to do it.
Most definitely. I want to say really quick, mad Bitcoins saying stuff about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is economically default free. It's a default free currency. Like, really hear that? That's bizarre. It's pretty cool. And it's also a system which needs hashing. Well, default is what happens when you default is that you can't pay your bills, or you're insolvent, or you can define it in many different ways. And an IOU is a very non-default free currency. You get a little too crazy with your IOUs, and you're going to default on your deals. But Bitcoin has the IOU and the unit of currency fused together inseparably. It's not just that we'd like it to be default free. It cannot be anything other than default free unless the code changes, which would transcend the definition. So that's a pretty cool thing. So it's economically default free, and then it's also based on math-based security, SHA-256, or the secure hash algorithm, and it's some good stuff. And we have it running through advanced salting and noncing hash protocols, and it is very, very, very secure. And I know that it's secure, so I'll put my name on the line.
Last hour explaining things to people was just lost by Blake with his salting and his hashing and his they're never gonna get it, man. But
it's secure. What my point is that the system in and of itself is secure as far as we know now, and if that begins to change, the community will start freaking out and saying, here's real tenable arguments that are more materially damaging than a 51% or an inconvenience or a fork.
Hey, Blake, you know a lot of technical stuff about Bitcoin, and I'm curious if you'd be... I'm interested in reading the white paper for one episode and having experts interject stuff into it. I think we could have a really cool... I think that could be the ultimate explanation of Bitcoin in 3 hours or whatever, just reading the white paper and then having conversation about it. Would you be interested in talking about that?
I would. I feel a little bit, though, that it would be like me being friends with Isaac Newton back in the day, and then him writing Principia or coming up with multivariable differential integral calculus while Cambridge is closed, and then somebody being like, your buddy came up with this, why don't you explain it? I'd be like, I know it's really cool, and I understand what he's talking about basically, but I'm not Satoshi. I don't know if I would have really valuable stuff to add.
It would be a whole panel of people. We would have everyone on here.
I think I've been wanting to do a literary deconstruction on it and just kind of try to interpret some of the underlying intentions. Also, tomorrow there is an event, a very exclusive event in London called Coin Summit, and I've proposed that we do a B-side to their summit because it's £720 a ticket. It's very, very select. A lot of very good people aren't able to go because they haven't been invited. You have to request an invite, in fact. So we have suggested that we do an alternative kind of conference online, and one of the ideas I came up with is actually reading some of the early correspondence that Satoshi still persists on the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute website and also the Bitcoin Talk Forum, because I thought one of the great, and of course in Tom's book as well, because I think one of the lessons that Satoshi imparted that we still haven't learned yet is this permissionless action. The fact is he didn't wait for permission. He didn't pander to VCs, regulators, or governments to see if it was okay. It's okay if I create digital scarcity, everyone. Is that all right? Does anyone mind? I don't want to step on anyone's toes. No, he just went ahead and did it, and then he published it, and he got a whole bunch of feedback for some really, really smart people. And the way that he interacts or she interacts, actually I'd really like Stephanie Murphy to do a reading of it in a female voice. I think it sounds a lot better in a female voice when you hear it, and I'd really like to kind of go into some of it, and anyone who's got any questions should be able to call in.
I can do a female voice.
And people should be able to do
voice, man.
Yeah, Stephanie's got a great voice, and I think she'd do a very good job of it. But really what I'm trying to get across here is that this was a humble individual, humble in the face of ambition. This idea had been plaguing her for a long time. She talked about that in some of her correspondence, how it had been, kind of beating her up about it, and then she just right, I've got to do this thing. I'm just gonna do it. And she didn't wait for anyone else. She just kind of went ahead and did it, put it out into the world, started getting feedback. She didn't even need to meet anyone. She didn't need to go into any conferences. It was all done over email and on forums.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, like, who is Satoshi, and do you put a lot of effort into finding out who it is, and do you go and analyze text samples and stuff to try to figure it out? And it's like, no, not at all. It's not my business. It's not. They didn't ask for me to go find them. They didn't ask for. So when people ask me who Satoshi is, or if I know, I always say, yeah, I know exactly who Satoshi is. And so then they get kind of freaked out, and then I'll look at them right in the eye, and I'll point right to their chest and say, you're Satoshi. And they'll say, what? I'll say, you're Tyler Durden. You're Satoshi. You are the frontal lobes of the universe. Nothing matters except for your subjective experience and the spark that makes you different. That's the most rare and valuable asset on this planet, and you should not waste it trying to find out who Satoshi is.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm not related to that reporter that broke the story on whatever magazine, because she's got the same last name as I do. But absolutely, I was so unhappy when that happened. She broke that story and was like, "Oh yeah, I found Satoshi and all this," and I was like, "Oh God!" Now everyone's gonna think that I have something to do with it. But luckily, nobody said anything. But I was like, you're dishonoring my name by releasing this stupid story like that. I mean, it probably wouldn't be helpful, but I thought it would be maybe as an art piece or a joke. But you could make a white book, kind of like Mao. Mao Zedong has the red book. You make a white book, and it just has like some really important quotes and concepts, and it could have like what page. Under the quote, what page of the white paper you would find that quote, but just to make it so that it's not so intimidating. Okay, we should all be, learning about security and be willing to read a whole white paper, but you could just, the basic concepts, in this little like white book, and then people can, get turned onto it without having to, read the whole thing.
I love that. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. It could even be for kids. I mean, what couldn't you do with the white paper?
Yeah, you could color it. The coloring book. That's why it's white.
I only like the red book. You guys are hippies. The state needs to plan the future.
I've read the little red book.
Sure. Oh, I've got a real one. It's a total personality cult. You know what I mean? And that's what we should avoid. But you could make. Maybe you could make one.
Talk about white book versus red book. Mao Zedong, Mao's book, Chairman Mao.
Like Sun Tzu. It's like twisted Sun Tzu, kind of.
Oh, don't compare it to Sun Tzu, man. That's like, oh man, you're gonna rustle somebody's Jimmy's hardcore. You're gonna get some hate.
It wasn't that bad.
But the point was that the design of the book is good, because what it is that he wrote all of these really long papers, with really, and he knew that people wouldn't read all those papers. There's no way. This is like really like, complex stuff that he was talking about, really long papers. So he just said, okay, I'm just going to take the greatest hits, make my concepts and put it into chapters, and and that's it. And then everyone will get what I'm talking about, and that's what he did.
It's like a Bartlett's propaganda with longer things than quotes.
Exactly. So I mean, maybe a coloring book or a white paper, not a white paper, a white book, but in a non-personality cult type of way somehow, wouldn't be such a bad thing. I mean, you'd have to somehow, at the end say, oh, you thought that was cool, then you need to go read the whole white paper. Here's where you can read it. But, just a kind of like introduction to, because it's not as hard to read as some people think. Maybe you just tell someone, hey, have you read the white paper? Oh, no, that's too technical. Oh, too technical. It's not that bad. It's not so crazy to read. Okay, some parts get a little bit detailed, but I think that most people can manage to at least read it, and you don't have to understand everything completely, just so that you can say that at least you've tried to read it,
So you don't think this sounds like Sun Tzu? War is the continuation of politics. In this sense, war is politics, and war itself is a political action. Since ancient times, there has never been a war that did not have a political character.
I don't know, like Sun Tzu in the supreme art of war, to win without fighting and to undermine various things that prevent people from getting killed, except for by starvation and stuff. But I don't know, I think that Sun Tzu is in a different category as far as the amount of value that some of the stuff he said had.
He is, but if you
Yeah.
want to understand Chairman Mao's work without reading it, and I think it's a fair analogy. It's it's a list of things to do if you want to create a Mao Zedong-like communist dictatorship, which most people don't want to create, so it's not that useful.
Yeah.
Chris thinks we should answer all the questions from the question and answers. I think we should watch the end of the soccer game. What do you guys think?
No, do the Q&A. Come on.
I don't like sportsing.
Chris,
It's
do you want
0-0 anyway.
to?
I checked it 0-0. Don't worry, you didn't miss anything.
That's the negative soccer view. You have to think I'd miss some really exciting 0-0 action. But let's go ahead and start in with the questions. Derek, do you want to read the questions?
No, I want Chris to choose the first one. He's the one who wanted to do Q&A. I wanted to leave
Chris, do you have the question and answers up on your screen?
Yeah, I do. You can hear me, yeah. So one of them is about two-factor authentication, and someone here called ZipStunter is saying that 2FA is hackable with this tool, and it points you to a website. I'm looking at it in a safe browser. Browser pivoting is a man-in-the-middle attack to hijack a compromised user's authenticated web session. A Cobalt strike implements browser pivoting with a proxy server that injects a 32-bit and 64-bit Internet Explorer. Okay, that's very interesting. Let me just pull up the page for you.
That's situational. If X situation is present, then Z is insecure. I mean, that's a platitude.
Right. So say more about that in different language.
Well, I mean, you can say if you're in a lion cage with a whole bunch of hungry lions, you're screwed. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to go get into a hungry lion cage and access through some kind of proxy or compromised distribution frame and then go through and put in my 2FA information or register 2FA or whatever you would have to do. I might be misunderstanding his criticism, but from what I'm getting from you guys, it seems like a special situation that would allow a security breach.
In that case, it's about setting up honey traps, like was present at PorcFest allegedly, that people were logging on, going to their blockchain.info accounts and stuff like that, and then it was snooping on the data that they were sending over the Wi-Fi network.
Okay, so perhaps we should clarify, like 2FA doesn't make it so that everything is completely secure. 2FA is not completely immune to any kind of attack, and as this person is illustrating, you can compromise your 2FA if you have lots of keyloggers and extra software that you've downloaded by clicking on spam and stuff on your phone or computer. So be wary of that. I mean, the more insecure inherently that a system is, the more risk there is of basically you not knowing what special situation does already exist, like the one that's being described by this user.
And also, we should mention
he also
that
says that it only works on Internet Explorer. So if you use
that's
it only works on Internet Explorer.
Yeah, so
that's what it says. That's what it says.
You deserve to have your Bitcoin stolen if you still use Internet Explorer.
Wait though. The most important thing to remember when people bring up Internet Explorer, because we all rag on it all the time, is that Fortune companies, a lot of them have to use Internet Explorer because of their deals with Microsoft and stuff. Yeah. So that's always remember that when Internet Explorer is that bad and so bad, remember that regulators are making our giant corporations and institutions use this.
I thought for sure you were going to say, what if they have a time machine? If they have a time machine, they'll be using Internet Explorer.
We should also mention that two-factor doesn't actually encrypt your data. It's just an extra wall for login. So a lot of these services, the data is still only one pass encrypted on their server. So the attacker can still get into, can still attack the servers without even having to go through the 2FA at all in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, if they get into Google, your data is compromised. But if somebody breaches Google, hopefully they would let the stakeholders know, which would be news media and everybody, and it would be all over the news. But we never know because Google is getting too big too. So that is a very real source of concern.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to the next question. Could the convention's Wi-Fi be compromised? It seemed like someone could travel from convention to convention stealing Bitcoin. Now, Blake, yes. I'm not too sure on this, but it seems like you can sniff a Wi-Fi network without compromising it, right?
Well, there's all kinds of ways that you can compromise an information distribution frame or a gateway or any kinds of thing. Like you can actually go and get devices that clip onto the cat cabling and stuff. You could drill through the wall. There's physical access is always the #1 risk to information security. physical access is just massive. So like the other day when I was at the Capitol in Minnesota here, I was walking. There was an underground tunnel from one building to another, and there was all this exposed data cabling. I looked up and I was like, that is just obscenely risky. That is just unmitigated risk, just hemorrhaging out of there like radiation. So basically my advice to people is at conferences, which are really, really, really hot zones right now, they are state-of-the-art math-based security finance conferences where people are bringing lots of money, don't connect to public Wi-Fi, don't connect anywhere except for your 4G connection at anywhere near that conference the entire time. Don't even risk it, even with 2FA. And don't even risk going in there with any kind of Bitcoins that don't have 2FA on them already, because once you get there and they know who you are, they are going to assume that you have money. So I don't want people to be overly paranoid, but at the same time, we need to start taking security into our own hands, and a little bit of paranoia is probably good for you.
Congratulations, you've just become your own bank. Now the world's filled with bank robbers everywhere. All of a sudden, everywhere you look, bank robbers.
Because it only hurts one person, and the script kiddies think that there's some kind of greater good inoculative thing going on, and they use their fascist argument and their fallacy.
And remember, the difference between a script kiddie and a white hat hacker is that the white hat hacker gives the money back. The script kiddie keeps the money. Like, you can improve the network, you can pen test, you can expose zero-day vulnerabilities, you can expose them to the public, or you can expose them to one of those networks where they sell zero-day vulnerabilities. You can decide what color hat you're going to put on when you become a hacker, when you become interested in this kind of information security stuff. So.
Yep, and I have a supreme level of respect for white hat hackers. What they do is an invaluable service, and they're fantastic. And script kiddie is somebody that steals from people and uses other people's if you're using somebody else's information tools to steal from people and you're a script kiddie, that's just don't do that. Don't be that.
Blake, is it kitty like a kid who's small, or is it kitty like a cat?
It's been on the internet for long enough that it's been conflated to everything, but I think it started out as like child, like Kinderscheißen, like kitty time, like script kitty.
Okay, because it sounds a little too cute for a bad term.
Well, there's also that internet joke where they have a picture of a cat and it says kitty porn, but it's kitty porn,
Yeah.
Words are
I mean, it sounds gentle. Like if you're not in the information science field, you'd be like, oh, he's not really calling them out or saying anything mean. But if you're a script kiddie and you're listening to me right now, you are absolutely enraged. Like, I'm not a script kiddie.
Unless
didn't
you're
develop
12,
those scripts.
If you're 12 and you're trying to learn how to do things, then you're using other people's tools because you haven't had time to read enough. If you take the time and read everything, which I haven't done in computer science, but it's available to you if that's your interest, you can grow out of this phase, or it can be like this 12-year-old thing, like you're messing with people because you're a kid. But
yeah, and I kind of have a subjective definition of it too, because if people use a whole bunch of other people's scripts to do positive stuff, I would never call them a script kiddie. I'd be like, you're just like me and everybody else, standing on the shoulders of giants and stuff to try to achieve.
Remember that? Remember
Anonymous
had that weapon, the ion cannon or something? People would all run the same program at the same time to directly to DDoS a site. That was script kiddieism, and they got in a lot of trouble too. So you better watch out.
Well, what they would do is they would have everybody join a proxy and then try to keep everybody secure and then run scripts only after they've secured themselves. So Anonymous is awesome, and my main concern with Anonymous usually is that somebody's going to join in on an op that doesn't know how to secure themselves, and then they get arrested, and then as you see, they're like, we arrested the leader of Anonymous. It's like, you got some poor script kiddie, or I wouldn't even want to call him a script kiddie. That's almost like I would call them a white hat hacker.
Bandwagon joiner type guy. You just joined up at the wrong time, wrong group.
But for the best possible reasons, like I wouldn't call them a script kiddie because I think it's a derogatory term.
Well, Urban Dictionary has a definition saying, here I'll do a screen share with you guys. Hacker lingo, one who relies on pre-made exploit programs and files or scripts to conduct his hacking and refuses to bother to learn how they work. The script kiddie, with a D, because I thought it was, you guys were talking about little cats. Script kiddie flies in the face of all that the hacker subculture stands for: the pursuit of knowledge, respect for skills, and motivation to self-teach are just three of the hacker ideals that the script kiddie ignores. While anyone can be a script kiddie, generally they are teenagers who want the power of the hacker without the discipline or training involved. Obviously, anyone who follows this route aspires to be a black hat. That's another special term, but may refuse to even dignify them with this term. Black hat generally implies having skills of your own. So that's the Urban Dictionary definition.
Yep. And so hackers want to be autodidactic. They want to go and look for flaws in systems and make them anti-fragile. They want to do a lot of stuff. I mean, the term hacker, people don't really understand what it means, and script kiddies give hackers a bad name when they're trying to be the best people in history. So the real hacking community absolutely hates script kiddies. Somebody revealed themselves to me recently in person as a script kiddie, and I honestly wanted to choke him out and bang his head against the ground until he died.
Who was that?
That's
Anyone we know?
horrible. Like,
he stole Bitcoin from people that I know.
Oh.
So yeah, I wanted to do violence to him, very, very much so, to punish him for stealing from my friends. But I didn't. I mean, you know, I didn't. I adhere to the NAP. So
That's what a government would do.
yeah.
Well, that's really tough. I wonder what justice would look like. Like, we're seeing paradigms being broken because the state can't do what it promises to do. So people are finding solutions on their own. What would justice be? I mean,
well, I don't know. I don't know what justice would be, but I look at it as he was telling me that he did all this stuff and that he was the immune system of the internet, and that the internet was his, and that it was for the greater good, man, and all these stupid fascist collectivist arguments. And somebody
post facto justification for what he really wants to do anyway, which is steal. He's just finding some philosophy to
just rationalization, just trying to rationalize, yeah. And well, basically, one of my friends that strikes me as a pretty serious dude that was there, like a serious guy with like other guys that may or may not be security or whatever, I'm not sure. He got a lot of money stolen by a script kiddie in D.C. and he asked me, you know, do you know who it was? And I'm a pretty honest guy, and he knows that I'm a pretty sharp guy. And I was like, yeah, I think it was this person, because he basically, you know, told me. And what I think of this is, like, if he's going to try to justify it as we're going to inoculate and it's going to be better for them, it would have been worse if it had been longer before we did it. It's like, well, then I don't know if this guy's going to send, like, Mo to tune you up because you stole, but maybe that would be his greater good, showing you a lesson as a script kiddie that when you steal from people, you better make damn sure that they can't ever figure out who it is, and you better not brag about it, because somebody coming and ripping off your patellas is some serious shit. And, you know, theft is not something that's okay under natural law. I mean, if you go all the way back to the history of natural law, you've got three different things. You don't, you know, assault people or kill them. You don't steal or destroy people's shit, and you don't use duress or nonsense in your contracts. So this is like really simple, basic law. People that don't know that they shouldn't steal from other people and try to justify it make me really mad.
Well, I thought it was interesting that you said that you wanted to hurt this man. That was a shock to me, because I'm always focusing on, you know, peaceful solutions. But then I considered it a little more. Some people equate theft, like money theft, as being almost the same thing as taking someone's liver.
You've retroactively enslaved somebody else. It's retroactive enslavement of a peer of yours.
If you have ownership of your money, you have ownership of your money just the same as you have ownership of your eyeballs or your tongue or anything that you own in your body. You know, you used your body to produce that money or whatever. Now you have ownership of that. So it is sort of like that guy attacked your friend. If you knew that if he stole the money, it's sort of like almost a physical violation. So I can almost see the justification for violence there, but I do wonder what the best solution would be, because violence would be the last.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't go do violence against him.
Right, of course. And you did.
Myself.
Yeah. Right. But I do want justice, you know, and in the Bitcoin community, that's going to be, we're going to see more of these thefts, right? And we're going to be interacting with this relatively small community. I'd like to see a good precedent set for peaceful justice that's swift and hopefully inexpensive.
You know what I was thinking of? You know that song by Nate Dogg?
Which one?
Regulators. I don't know. No, it's good. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, of course. It's an ongoing discussion. I think it's also it's an important one. I mean, it's also difficult for me to about where's the line to self-defense, and where do you when is it okay to get, when can I justify physical using physical violence in self-defense? And a lot of times in the past, when I would have discussions, people justify the kind of like in a situation that just happened. They say, yeah, the state is stealing from me all the time, so any violence that I do to anyone connected to the state is justified. You see what I mean? So it's all about where you draw.
I agree, but this is so much more clear. This is so much more clear than that.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I'm just saying that it's an important discussion just to talk about where's the line to where you can. It's okay, and it needs to keep coming up, because sometimes we or I or everybody loses touch to why that's important, and we need to discuss it. If someone steals if someone's at a conference and you see them, hacking someone else's phone with their own phone, is it okay to, knock this guy out cold, or what do you do?
No, I'm glad we're talking about this, because I think violence is the last resort, and Blake provided an excellent example of restraint and pursuing
I was saying how
justice.
I felt, my emotions at the time. I was
that's how you're feeling. But so the state uses violence, and that's an ancient method of getting justice, and I don't think it's one that's practical today, because you needed to knock someone's nose out or their teeth out or break their arm to incapacitate them from work. But in the digital age, people could just keep working and making money or whatever. That's no justice. If you really want to incapacitate somebody in the 21st century, I think the way to do it is to focus on shining a light on their reputation. So if they're a hacker who is stealing from people at conferences, posting their picture everywhere, and at these conferences, or finding what sort of aliases they have already built a reputation for, perhaps on eBay, or and giving them bad seller ratings. There's got to be some other way to ruin reputation in the 21st century that doesn't involve violence.
No, I agree. I agree. What we don't want is
Theo, you dropped out. I'm not hearing him. Anyone else?
Yeah, no, violence is, basically I try to say violence and physical human interaction is akin to fallacy and intellectual interaction. Like they're not productive. It's a net loss pretty much every single time. So if we can find out a way to maybe get this person to use his skills, talents, time, motivation, whatever, to pay this money back, I think that would be better than damaging his cellular colony, because his cells maybe didn't have anything to do with it, and they're alive too. So from a weird, super subjective macro perspective, it's kind of, I don't know, weird that we solve anything with violence, I think.
Well, it's almost 6. What should we close on?
I've got another quote from Chairman Mao. It says, "It is man's social being that determines his thinking. Once the correct ideas characteristic of the advanced class are grasped by the masses, these ideas turn into a material force which changes society and changes the world."
I have another Mao saying, "Power grows out of the barrel of a gun."
Mao.
Yeah, but not over the long run. I think, like, if someone's going to hurt me, I want them to look me in the eye. The problem with guns is too cowardly, because you can do it from any distance. Like, I prefer people that stab.
No, I have to be correct. I have to correct my quote there. I left out a very important word. The beginning of the quote is "political power grows out of the barrel of a gun." Right. Real power and long-lasting power might just come from, who knows what, decentralized
omnipotence comes from firearms.
And power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah, I like these quotes.
Speaking of power, I wanted to draw everyone's attention to tomorrow's Coin Summit. I spoke about it a little bit earlier. This is the exclusive lineup that we have in London, in Canary Wharf. I mean, you should see this location. It's absolutely very, very upmarket, very, very sophisticated part of Towns B. Apparently, it's all private property as well. This is, I think, this is owned by the Canary Wharf Corporation. So you're not allowed to be there. Like if you go there and you start taking pictures, security guards come up to you and they ask you, to show them their phone. I've been pulled over a few times because I often go there not wearing a suit, wearing jeans and maybe a corduroy jacket, and I kind of stand out a little bit because I'm not wearing a navy blue Armani. But yeah, so this is it, and look, I'm fairly open-minded about it. I actually do know some of the people that are behind the organisation of it, so I don't want to pass judgment too early. But these tickets are, £600 plus VAT, so that's £720 each if you're an entrepreneur, or they're £1,200 plus VAT for everybody else, and they've been very, very difficult to get a hold of. To their credit, though, they are running a live stream of the event. So that's why I'm saying I'm kind of open-minded, but I'm going to start tuning in when they start, which is about 10 a.m. or 9:30 a.m. UK time, British summer time. So I'm going to start tuning in. If they're saying things that are interesting, I might well do a live stream. If you're interested in getting involved and you think that some of the issues might be relevant, you've got something to say about them, all you need is a decent microphone and a story to tell. I will be live tweeting from the event anyway. I won't actually be there. I'll be at home. I didn't request an invite. And even if I did, I couldn't afford £720. So I will be hosting a live stream and maybe passing commentary on it, and then hopefully in the afternoon as well, if you guys are awake, you can join me as well.
I was going to also say that the Chicago, the North American Bitcoin Conference is going to be July 19th and 20th. So it's coming up here in about 2 weeks almost, I guess, or 10 days. It's going to be great. It's going to be a fun time, and I'm going to be there, and Julia's going to be there filming her Bitcoin independence video. I think Roger Ver is going to be there. It's going to be a good time had by all, and I hope that I see everybody at the Chicago conference, because it's going to be a lot of great talks and a lot of great people. Will Pangman is running some cool stuff there, and he's a good friend of mine too, so I'm really stoked about it.
And Theo had to leave early, but I want to put his plug out there. Theo is running a Start Join project at startjoin.com/CryptoLina. And there's going to be a cryptocurrency convention in Carolina. I don't know which one, South Carolina, I guess, maybe Northern Carolina. One of the Carolinas is having a cryptocurrency convention, and Theo would like to go.
East Carolina.
East Carolina. West, North, Southwest Carolina, one of them. And Theo is all the way in Brussels. So again, if you want to bring someone from Europe to America to have them experience a Bitcoin convention, I can't guarantee that I'll be in one of the Carolinas whenever this goes down. But if you'd like Theo to go, you can donate at startjoin.com/CryptoLina. So, cool stuff.
All right, cool. Well, hey, guys, it's 6 o'clock. Great episode, everyone. Oh, it's 6 o'clock here on the East Coast.
On the distance.
We're going for
right-hand side.
So congratulations to all. This was a really enjoyable episode. And so, and look, we get Theo back to say goodbye. I just wanted to thank Blake, Theo, Thomas, and Chris for being on today. You can check out all past episodes of this Bitcoin Talk Show at bitcointalkshow.com. They're all there for you in one easy-to-digest list. If you enjoyed this show and said, hey, I want to catch more of that, you can do that online. Also, email us throughout the week if you have questions for our guests. We have these folks as regulars. bitcointalkshow@gmail.com is a perfect email address that you can use to ask questions, maybe about this show topic that was discussed today, or topics that you'd like discussed in the future. And you guys have some websites to plug too, right? So sign off and say your website.
Blake Anderson, facebook.com/gotblake.
Theo?
Still trying to go to Carolina.
Soundwallet.net.
All right. Then Chris.
Just me on Twitter at Mr. Chris Ellis.
And I'm madbitcoins.com.
And I'm Derek J. I do a podcast called Peace News Now, so check it out at peacenewsnow.com. But this has been Bitcoin Talk Show. Catch us again next Wednesday. We will be live at noon Pacific time, so that's the West Coast in the Americas. Noon Wednesday. We'll catch you next time.